everyone. Welcome to the Ashland Select Board meeting of August 16th. Oh, good evening. Welcome to the Select Board meeting of August 16th. Thank you, Michael, for turning on my microphone. That's very nice. This meeting is called to order, and it's being live streamed by WACA-TV. The first item on our agenda is citizens' participation. Is there anyone here for citizens' participation? Right. Mr. Morgan, approach the microphone.
Is the mic on?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have two issues I'd like to discuss tonight. I'll be brief. I'd invite any select member to come to my house and review these yourself if you're interested in any facts or documents. So the first thing I'm concerned about is around Tuesday of last week, the existing boundary fence over at the Mindy School behind my property was removed, and a backhoe was ran across the property. This went beyond the boundary fence that existed for decades. This issue came up 2 years ago in the hearing that boundary fence is on a deed, and it may not be exactly there in a modern survey, but that's where it is, and it's a pretty settled issue. But the contractor, with no notice, came over, removed the fence, backhoed the back of the property. So I engaged with the police department, I asked what the procedure was, and I have since filed a no trespass with the town and with the contractor, and offered to discuss the boundary and resolution. Instead, I've gotten a letter from town council threatening to send the police to my property. I've been assured by the chief that they have no authority, which I know they have no authority to send police on a civil matter to my property, but yet I was threatened by a letter by town council, which, by the way, showed up a day late with the wrong date on it and wasn't helpful, accusing me of not being the trustee of my own condo association and completely uninformed. So I think that's for you to review with town council. But I expect that fence to get put back where it was. It's a decades-old boundary. I don't understand why people are fighting over a few feet in my backyard when it has no impact on the design of the road or the property. And yet, this is where we are. And I think a lot of that has to do with who's running that project in the town. So I'm not sure, but I think it's pretty simple. If you want to see what was done, happy to show it to you. I've told the contractor, I'm happy to work with him. If he can, he can come onto the property and put it back if he needs to, whatever the case is, as long as he puts it back where it was. That's all I'm asking for, put it where it was. And that seems to be too hard. So at the moment, I'm being threatened by council. I also understand council may, or the town is threatening through the contractor, my neighbor's shed at my adjacent property, which they're claiming is on town property. They're threatening my other neighbor further down the road that his fence, which is backed up with the existing fence, is on their property. And this is all going on in my neighborhood. So there were assurances that this would all be done in a neighborhood-friendly manner, but yet we have this whole row of neighbors being threatened over this boundary that doesn't even appear to be needing to be moved, but yet the town is trying to insist that they've got this modern electronic survey and they want to move it. So I think you need to review that and figure out whether that's really a priority for the town. If we want to, I suppose we could argue that we're trying to block the school's opening or something if we want to go down these paths, but this has nothing to do with any of that. This has got to do with my backyard and whether the fence is being moved. And, that fence has been there in some form for, 70 years, since 1953, when it was required by a deed that the town accepted and is obligated to fulfill. This was all discussed 2 years ago. So why this is happening, news to me. But I would hope you get control of it. I don't need to be spending my time talking to the chief to remind her she has no authority to follow town council's opinion. This is a civil matter. It's like a divorce case. Police are not supposed to be involved. If town council wants to go to land court and argue that the land shouldn't be at the boundary fence, she's welcome to do that. I'm not interested in going to land court. Don't think that's the right approach, but she's well within her rights to go to land court and suggest that my understanding of the boundary is not correct and that she wants to quiet the boundary or whatever the case may be. That's her prerogative, but it's not her prerogative to threaten me with police and say she's removing my property and my signs, which is what she's done. So that's comment number one. So I would invite anybody to come look. As a side matter, they violated the conservation restriction, which Becca has now resolved on the stream that we've all discussed nearby. And, I understand mitigations are now being put in place. But this was on this project. I know they also nearly flooded one of the other neighbors further down with water, which we all know that site's full of water. They almost flooded the new school. And these are all things that were covered in Concom on Monday. So
I don't want to get in all that here, but that's for information. I would hope, again, someone would take an interest. I'm happy to, provide information, sit down and resolve this, but I'm not interested in moving the fence onto my property. It wasn't there for 70 years. There's no reason it should be there now. Okay? That's pretty simple. Second point I want to make, since I'm here and I'm motivated to talk about this project, is I've been getting the runaround by this project for now over 10 months almost on an insurance claim. This project damaged my home. I have new cracks in my foundation. I have tile cracks in my floors. I have separated sheetrock throughout my house. I don't know. I'm not a contractor, but this is probably about something like 15 to 20K worth of damage that I filed an insurance claim with the contractor, who in turn sent it to their subcontractor, who sent it to another subcontractor, who all of which claim none of it's their responsibility. I was in my home when they were doing this work. I can't tell you whether it was the blasting, the rock crushing, the impact wells being drilled. I'm not the one to decide that. But I know that I was in my house was shaking all day long, caused by those rock crushers and those impact drills. A couple of the blasts that went off almost shook me out of my chair. I'm not here to argue seismic data. Fact is, they shook my house. I have damage in my house. I'm happy to show it to anyone who's interested in looking at it. They all have videos of it, but they're still claiming, oh, no possible way this damage came from us. And that's nonsense. So I don't think it's a big deal, on a project of this size. But why is it that the town and its contractor can't take responsibility for the neighbors? I don't know what damage my other neighbors have. They've told me they have damage, in particular the historic home on the end by the driveway. He's told me he's got foundation cracks that are new. And again, I'm not speaking for them. They can come speak for themselves. But this is what's going on in the neighborhood. So maybe people don't like me here, but this is not about me. It's about what this project is doing to my home. And I would invite you to either come look or sit down and discuss a resolution. It's very reasonable. I know the chief said my request was very reasonable, that people not move the fence. She assured me that she had told her staff that they were not to come on the property and they were not to, take anything off the property until it was resolved by a court, which is a very reasonable decision and a correct decision. So I don't know, town council obviously has a different opinion. She'd like to waive a new survey and say, I own this land. She's welcome to go to court and prove that and quiet the title. But until she does, I don't need her threatening me, telling me I'm damaging her and trespassing on her property when she's the one representing the contractors who came by with a bulldozer, removed the fence through self-help, and now complain the sign's not exactly in the right spot. We're not arguing about inches here. We've got about 5 to 8 feet here we're talking about. If the sign's a few inches the wrong way, I'm not arguing about the exact positioning of the sign. That's not the goal here. The goal is to put the fence back where it was. That's my goal, and protect my property.
All right, thanks, Steve.
And while I'm at it, I like the screening trees put in that are in the plans, which are not there. So I just leave that.
So you've raised some important points. Is there anyone here, like the town council or town manager, who has detailed knowledge of this that would cares to respond to what Mr. Morgan is saying? Or he's asked us to follow up and investigate, so.
So I would suggest to the board that this is not on the agenda and is a legal matter, and I would respectfully suggest that this is a matter that would be handled either in executive session or when it's properly on the agenda, and would involve the building committee as well.
Okay, so, and we do have some members of the building committee. So I guess I'm just procedurally, just want to make sure that there is a process in place for reviewing and resolving what Mr. Morgan is bringing up. Is that process underway?
Which?
Well, he's made a number of claims here, or he's alleging two different things here that seem important. So
I think both of them. I'm going to say both of them, Steve. I'm going to say the fence issue, and then also the damage issue, the insurance claim. I think there's a process that's been laid out, and I think both parties have been following that. And there's, so just take the insurance claim, for example. You filed a claim, it's going through the process. It might not necessarily be the answer that you want to hear, but there's a process to resolve that. And I'm sure if it gets denied, you have the ability to appeal that. And again, I know you're a process guy, so I would say take advantage of that.
Thank you. And there are certain processes. I know the town sent me a letter, claimed that they didn't have presentment and weren't responsible. So if that's the process that the town wants to take, they won't even investigate, and they'll send a letter saying they need presentment they don't have, even after they've been told. That's certainly an outcome. I think it's incorrect to suggest that the process has been followed. I will tell you, I don't want to bring a legal case for $15,000 to $20,000, but I'm talking to a lawyer now about this, and in particular about my damages in my home. And if people can't come look at the damage, you don't have to be an expert to look at damage and understand that the vibration of my home caused the damage in front of your eye. You know, it's obvious. I've gotten the public records about these things. There was a dispute about whether an inspection was allowed, which the records that were presented were inaccurate. I personally walked the inspector around the whole condo unit exterior with him. And then he filed a document claiming he only looked at the exterior 138, which is half of my building. And then he claimed that we're not responsible for the damage for blasting because we can't prove it wasn't there. Well, he walked it with me. There was no cracks in my foundation when he walked it. But yet I have 4 or 5 brand new cracks in my foundation, which you can look at. They're not full of moss. They're not old. You know, it's pretty obvious what was done here. And so if I need to hire a lawyer to go to court to get an insurance claim enforced so I can fix my home because we have a problem that the committee doesn't want to own, or the contractor, nobody wants to own a problem. I understand that. But these are not like earth-shattering things that should take a big thing. So
Thank you,
anyway,
Mr.
that's my
Morgan.
comment,
Yeah.
and I appreciate the time.
So I just want to, just want to make sure that we have something in place for some sort of follow-up. So is he advised to go to the building committee at this point, or what would?
Yeah, I actually would take Attorney Mead's advice at this point, and you know, if we want to have a fuller discussion about this, we have it on a properly noticed agenda.
Sure. And it sounds like it might be good if you shared some of this background information with the board, because what we're getting is emails from Mr. Morgan. I wasn't aware of the town council's letter or that. I mean, I don't know what other board members think, if you want to see this kind of material or how to handle this.
I believe it was sent to the building committee.
Right.
It was. Okay.
So town council sent me a letter, which was delivered by a police officer after 9 o'clock last night. They showed up at my door, which was dark, banging on my door, to deliver a letter that was dated from Monday. So it was a day late, almost 2 days late, claiming that if I didn't remove my no trespass sign within the next 48 hours, they were going to accuse me of trespass and sue me for damages. That's what the letter said to me at 9-something last night. Okay? Now, I understand that town council isn't supposed to be doing that. She threatened to send police to my home and remove those because she felt it was her property and she could have police do that. And police are not civil enforcers. They are criminal enforcers.
You've made that point.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
So this is what's really going on. So I hope you do investigate. I appreciate your asking a couple questions.
Okay.
And a final point on it, if I may. This doesn't need to be in an executive session necessarily. You have to decide as the chair that this is harmful to the town's position to discuss in the open. So I would think this is certainly something you can discuss in the open. I'd be happy to discuss with any individual member.
Well, we'll take that under advisement
Yeah.
in a future agenda. And so thanks for coming forward. And
Thank you.
hopefully you guys
Appreciate the
can-
time.
Thanks, Steve.
Please talk to my neighbors.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else for citizens Mark DeSoni, I think you can unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Mark DeSoni, 49 Hawthorne Road. And keep up the fight, Steve, because your property is being protected by you and the neighbors. But I'm coming up with something that is different. This is towards the town manager. And I asked the town manager a question.
Okay. Yeah. Are you okay with that, Rob?
Oh, sure, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, Mr. Town Manager, about the comprehensive plan,
Okay.
have you been getting any emails from me about grants that from different government agencies from me?
Mark, I have been getting a lot of emails from you about grants and things that you've signed up for and all this information and data that you've collected.
And the way that you were saying to me, that's my way of trying to shrink the gap.
The gap, exactly.
So I was trying to put that in a way that we both can understand where I'm coming from, and then it can go forth to the concept plan, which is tomorrow night, and be talked over as a group, and have them get involved. But grants is a way to get expenses and economic growth for the plan to work, right?
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a great topic of discussion, Mark, when we get to that section of the comprehensive plan, when we talk about like economic development and community development.
Okay, so that was what I did. You got those. I know. I've been said that I've been looking at them, and it's basically on the side of things I've been wanting to push the science, STEM, biology, and all that stuff, and education of students and college, and economic growth of people coming here. So I'm just saying that I thank you for replying that you did get those, and you're agreeing that they can be a good start for the comprehensive plan to talk on, and I want to keep it that way. I want to keep it for that. And my other question I asked you at the farmers market, is there going to be a chance for Zoomers to participate in those meetings?
Yeah, Mark, that's really going to be up to the chairs. I do know the chairs for tomorrow night. I know it's important to them to have people have an opportunity to speak, but we do have a rather large committee, and I think probably they will be prioritized first, but I'm sure they would like to hear your comments. So we'll have Alvaro helping with the meeting tomorrow night, and he can help.
And again, Steve, fight for what you got there, because you deserve to have the property be yours and have to be expanded on that was not there before. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mark. Anyone else for citizens' participation? Okay. Seeing no one, I'll move to the next item on our agenda, which is a legal update from our town council, Lisa Mead.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I was just talking to the chair ahead of the meeting. And so I'm here quarterly. So last time I was here was in April. So some things have changed and some haven't. And we're doing some new things that we hadn't been working on before. Just an update on the petition to NSTAR. We have not received any decision yet from the EFSB. And so we continue to wait on that. We settled the ATV case with Mr. Taylor and the Board of Assessors, and so that was resolved. That was still outstanding last time we were here. I know you're all interested in what's happening up at Burnham Circle. The planning board did vote on June 30th to give notice that they would revoke or at least provide notice to the bond company relative to completion of the project. That 45-day period ended yesterday. In the meantime, they did put together a contract and scope of work, which we had reviewed by or Peter had reviewed by the peer review consultant, and we provided that back to them and hadn't heard back from them. Brian, as you know, is taking the lead on this, and he's given him a number of chances. And finally today we got information back that they were still waiting on comments from their contractor related to, or their expert related to, the scope of work, and they hadn't started. The contractor has come in to try to start work, but until we have an agreed upon scope of work to make sure that the job is done properly, the permit hasn't been provided to let them go forward. So we have, the next step would be, depending on what happens to this agreement, is if they don't come back with a proper scope of work, that we would then file a proper notice or a notice to the bond company. So the bond company did get notice before that we sent the notice to the developer related to completing the project. But now there's another notice that we'd have to give to the bond company so they would start to move on the bond. So we're kind of in between right now waiting on that to happen. But obviously it is top priority.
Could I interrupt you for a quick second?
Sure, go ahead.
I drive by there quite often, and with all the torrential rainstorms that we've had, I drive by there. And I hope the scope of work is a little bit larger than what was originally anticipated to be done, because the washouts along that northern side of the hill that's coming down towards the edge, it's gotten worse. It has gotten worse. So I hope that scope of work expands to make sure that they put something in it to keep that from happening, because if you look at the cul-de-sac, it's all dirt.
So there's two remedies here. One is the requirements under the planning board decision, which is what we have the bond for. And that would be for the remaining undone work, which I recall was about $310,000, I think. But there's also the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. So I understand there are concerns by the conservation agent related to stormwater and washouts and things like that. So I can't tell you, Joe, which bucket that is in, but I know that everybody's keeping an eye on it.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep. There's a lot of us are. Thank you.
you're welcome.
So just a quick follow-up question to Joe's. So with regards to what's in front of the Conservation Commission or what's in their purview, is there some action that they are currently taking, or are they at this point?
Sure. So they issued enforcement orders and they issued fines.
Okay.
If depending on what happens with the planning board items, there is a hearing scheduled for the fines, but really it doesn't get the job done, right? You want the job done. So if we can't get anywhere, then the town has the choice to take action in court to compel that work to be done. And of course, that would be a determination of the Conservation Commission.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm just curious about what's the timeline on all that? You know, the way things seem to drag out sometimes, it isn't.
Right.
And things do continue to deteriorate there.
So we have made it very clear to the attorney for the developer that we need an answer now, which is why we turned around the peer review on that. He seemed to indicate in his several emails today that they were going to be doing that right away. I will tell you the contractor is anxious to get going because he's been up to the planning office several times, but he can't do the work until the scope is approved. So everybody understands the urgency of it. It's a matter of them getting it done. And so at some point, we will have to call the bond if we have to, but the bond company would do the work. So that, frankly, that's a longer process. And so it's better from an efficiency point of view to get the developer to do it and to do it now.
Just one last quick question. With the bond that's secured, or hopefully it's secured, if the work that needs to be done is greater than the bond that is currently there, who pays for the extra?
Well, that would have to be the developer.
Okay.
Right.
And if the developer doesn't, where does it fall? Does it
Well,
fall
it depends on the
HOA?
work, right? So it depends on the work because there's the conservation work and then there's the planning board work. So the planning board can only enforce that which is required under the plan. And so that's with the developer, right?
Yep.
That's with the developer.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. And speaking of rain and muddy waters, you might recall we reached an agreement with the developer and contractor at Legacy Place concerning stormwater runoff and implications in the Hopkinton Reservoir and whatnot. So that was going along slowly, but getting done. And then this summer, apparently the developer opened up a new section to build houses and did not have the appropriate controls in place. And so that has reared its ugly head again. But it's separate from the agreement that we already have because that involved a different thing, but it does involve implications into the reservoir. So Hopkinton actually is all over this. They have issued significant fines. They have requested the DEP get involved and come in and do an enforcement. Our Conservation Commission and Conservation Agent likewise is doing the same thing. And I have reached out to counsel for the developer as well. So Hopkinton did issue a cease and desist and require them to secure the site. Okay.
Just drove up there yesterday. It's a mess.
Yeah.
It's a total mess.
Yeah, I don't, it's a
No,
disaster.
I know.
Right.
It's a mess, and
Right.
hopefully it gets resolved.
Right. So, and of course, the summer's weather has made it all the worse, right?
Lisa, I just had a question. Like, there used to be a concept, of a well protection zone. I'm just wondering why why that hasn't happened in this case. Like, why there's no zone around the well that is, as a buffer, or isn't that?
So this goes into the reservoir, right? Surface water.
Yeah.
So it's surface water, but there are still drinking water requirements.
I thought it was impacting our well site directly as well.
It goes into the reservoir near the,
Near the well site.
Right,
Yeah.
right. The issue is
Well,
that
then it's a watershed aquifer for
Right, it's the
water,
sediment.
as a water source.
for us, it's the sediment, because it causes us to treat the water
Yeah.
with more chemicals more fully, and it
Right.
costs us more money for treatment.
No, yeah, I understand. I guess I'm just thinking, it is a reservoir, and so usually there's those houses are very close. I'm just wondering why we didn't protect that area better from.
Well, it's not our development.
Right, it's in
No,
Hopkinton.
I understand.
Right.
I guess I just thought these things were better protected than they are.
And
'Cause these
DCR
guys
has
are
been
building-
hesitant to,
DCR has not stepped in. It really,
despite repeated requests from
Right.
both Ashland and Hopkinton to
Okay,
intervene.
yeah,
So,
all right, thank you.
you're welcome. The public safety building, I continue to work on with Jen to close that out. And it looks like we're getting closer to a final resolution on that. So, and I'm sure you've heard the updates from Jen on that. Mendez School, we have providing ongoing assistance to the school building committee related to issues around construction. So we'll continue to do that. I was going to update when I was preparing this earlier today regarding the UGC and Gaynor matter. I was about to tell you that there was a hearing a couple of weeks ago. UGC had requested that Gaynor provide a bond to pay for attorney's fees and costs and interest during the litigation. You can do that when you appeal when a 40B is appealed. So that hearing happened, and we hadn't heard from them, and lo and behold, today we got the decision. So we're playing an inactive role in that, as you know, but the judge denied the bond. Not unusual. It's hard to get those approved. But there's a couple of interesting things that came out of it. So first of all, a case management conference is set for September at an unstated date, but there will be one in September. And they're going to discuss consolidating the cases at that time. And so we have the appeal of the 40B, and then there's the other separate case between UGC and Gaynor related to the enforcement of the purchase and sale agreement. So that typically would be a much slower case. The 40B case is on a fast track, fast in quotes. And so it'll be interesting. I don't know if they'll consolidate the cases or not. They're all the same parties. So we wouldn't obviously be a party to the purchase and sale agreement case, but I don't know how that's going to go. And then they're going to set a date for trial at the September case management conference. Again, setting a date for trial is going to be next year sometime at the earliest, I suspect.
Do you actually see it going to trial, or could there be an out-of-court settlement?
Well, there can always be an out-of-court settlement, but you just have to consider the parties that are involved. If this were in land court, one of the things about land court, in addition to being a more efficient process, is that judges really press mediation and resolution in the land court. And the Superior Court, they just don't have the bandwidth to do that. They don't make the same effort. And it's also in land court, you're with one judge. In Superior Court, they're on a rotation. So you're going to get one judge today and another judge for this case management conference and another judge for trial.
Lisa, excuse me, I have to interrupt. We have to call a public hearing, and then we'll suspend it and come back to you. So I think I will read the legal notice. Notice is hereby given that the Select Board will conduct a hearing regarding an application for a grant of location to install one pole number 3/2 3XA and one anchor guy. The applicant is NStar Electric Company, DBA Eversource Energy. Ponderosa Road, northerly side, approximately 444 feet plus or minus east of Cordoville Road, Ponderosa Road, Ashland, Mass. A public hearing will be held on the matter on Wednesday, August 16, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. Parties wishing to be heard on this matter are invited to attend the public hearing either in person or by logging into the Zoom meeting. Interested parties who are unable to attend the hearing may submit written comments to the Select Board's office, Town Hall, 101 Main Street, Ashland, Mass. 01721, or by emailing Susan Roby at sroby@ashlandmass.com. Signed, Robert Sher, Chair, Select Board. So I'll ask for a motion to open the
So moved.
hearing. Second. All those in favor of opening the hearing, say aye.
Aye. And then I
Hearing's
move
been
that we
opened.
suspend the hearing until we're done with our legal update.
I'll
Can I get a
that.
second? All those in favor of suspending the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting suspended. Okay, continue.
Okay. Then we've had a couple of gun license appeals with the police chief, not an unusual thing. So Brian has been working with the chief on that, on those two matters. You have before you this evening a approval of the new lease for the cell tower at the water tank on Cedar Street. This has happened. We worked on the RFP with this. We worked on the lease with this. We worked with Greg Eldridge at Haley and Ward and Doug Small. The goal over the last couple of years has been to get the antennas off of the top of the tank and put them down on the frame for longevity of the tank. And so once this lease is signed, then T-Mobile will be required to remove the antennas from the top of the tank and put them down on the frame. This lease also, as opposed to the 20-year lease before, has very specific design requirements about those connections, which will be overseen by our consultants as they go up. So it's a much better lease for the town, and you're still obviously going to get the revenue out of that. We've been continue to work on the road acceptance for Brogdon Road. We've been waiting on all the documents. Hopefully that's going to be on the town meeting warrant in the fall. Also, we've been working with Evan on an easement access on some property that you all own on High Street, behind Whitmore, which is open space, and there's a field up there that was donated to the town in the 90s by the Crawfords. There's a restriction in that deed that you can't access it over Whitmore. You have to access it over there's a little aisle area on High Street, and the grade is really, really steep. So one of the neighbors over the last number of years has allowed the town to go through their property and access it to mow it because you can't get to it from Whitmore. That neighbor now has volunteered to provide an easement to the town, so it's permanent, and then everybody's protected from an insurance and indemnification provision. So we're working on that. That'll be on town meeting this fall.
Lisa, just so you're aware that that's the Upper Charles Trail is also, we're trying to access it in that area. So I don't know if this particular easement, and I think we've talked to that person about the trail.
Well, so I'm going to stay out of the negotiations because that was Evan, because the
Okay.
access is only limited to a couple of times a year because it's only for
Right.
mowing.
So it's
And
still an
they
open
don't-
matter.
They didn't want to, overly overstay their welcome, so to speak.
Okay, so there's another item. Okay. Just so I just wanted to make sure you're aware of that.
I didn't know about that, so that's good to know.
Yeah.
Maybe you could put some steps in the other
Yeah.
section. The old fire station, I've been working with Beth and Jen on the RFP and the lease for the old fire station. Obviously, the RFP was awarded. The lease has been provided to them, and Beth is working on finalizing the lease for the old fire station. I've also been working with Jen and the Board of Health regarding a receivership issue with a local house that I think is going to be moving along in the right direction for the town and for the residents. And then I've been providing consultation with the planning board and with Peter on the Main Street project and with Mike. So we've been doing that on an ongoing basis. And obviously, the zoning board and the planning board ask us questions here and there regularly. So those are the big issues in addition to our regular day-to-day open meeting law, public records requests, and things of that nature that we do with the town and approval of contracts.
Okay, questions or any other
thank
comments,
you.
discussion? Thank you.
I do have one question, and this might be more for Michael. Now that we finished the FY23 budget, just kind of, is our legal costs sort of in line with prior years? Has it been flat? Has it been pretty, I'm just curious.
It was a little over this year.
Okay,
I don't have an analysis and breakdown of that, but it was a little over.
okay. I was just curious.
And so just remember the legal costs aren't necessarily just for Lisa or her firm. We also have labor counsel involved. And as you know,
We've had a lot of labor
exactly,
things going
especially
on.
civil service stuff.
Okay. I'm just curious because every year when we do town council evaluation, one of the items is, it talks about budget. And we never really have any frame of reference to kind of go year over year. So I'm just, while we're finishing up the fiscal year, I thought it might be a good question to ask.
Oh, that does remind me of one other thing. When you said labor and civil service, the other thing that we've been working on is the civil service, getting the police department on civil service. So that has now been, the package has now been finalized and it's getting sent off tomorrow to civil service.
It's one agenda item we can cross off. folks. So,
Right.
All right, great, thank you.
Do you, later on, we're doing their liquor license home rule petition. Are you going to be involved in that as well?
We
does that
probably drafted the letter and everything for the home rule
You
petition.
did, so you've
Yeah.
been working on that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else we should know about in terms of background for that, in terms of legal stuff or the legislature while you're here? You're leaving, I presume. You're not staying for our.
I'm not, yeah, I am gonna leave. That affects your budget.
With you, Lisa, is there anything else?
I'll just answer your question
right.
related to the liquor license. So
That's
every town meeting season, we probably have a half dozen to a dozen of our towns that submit home rule petitions. They really need to change the law.
How many of them have gotten it approved?
They all get
They all get
approved.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How long does it take, John?
Oh, anywhere from 8 months to 2 years.
Really?
But from what we found out, I think Susan had a conversation with the ABCC.
Right.
And they don't have too much information in terms of the legislative process, but it does seem to happen a little bit more quickly than other home rule petitions.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty standard now.
Because now it is almost.
So
Right.
we're asking for 16. Is that pretty typical, given our size and is that in your experience?
I've had smaller communities ask for a dozen. So, and I've had larger communities ask for one. So,
So it's kind of all over, okay. Are we ready to move along?
you're
I'm just
on
waiting
there.
for the podium to be let in, but I don't.
Just let us know, Jen. Any other questions?
Does
for
Susan
Lisa?
know that you're waiting for the podium to be let in?
I think so.
Yeah, we're back on Zoom.
we back live?
Yeah.
Yes, we are. Okay.
Do we cut the WACA feed as well?
No, I just, we never streamed at that part, so meetings weren't on at that moment.
Okay.
Maybe we need a
That was
10-second beep delay.
3 years I've never been Zoom bombed before. That was quite
Oh,
the
that's
experience.
the
There you
first
go.
time.
I got
Terrible
lucky.
experience, aren't you lucky?
It's
It's
terrible.
awesome. It's just fabulous.
It's bad. It's just.
It's great to see all of you. Welcome aboard, right?
Yeah, that's my second, same gentleman.
There you go.
No, he's
Yeah.
very familiar. It's been at least 2 or 3 times. Yeah.
No, I don't think I was on before.
Emblazoned. And
I don't remember that before.
Paul, do I join with audio on this? No.
It's just crazy.
Thanks,
Thank you, Lisa.
The rest of your summer.
I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
So do we have anybody here from,
right now, it does not look like it.
Okay.
Unless Mark, Helen, or Joan are now moonlighting for
For
Eversource.
N-Stars.
Yeah.
Because if we go into the deputy chief, that's going to take a little while if they show up.
Yeah. We are at
Is there a way-
7:42 right now.
Is there a way
which
to contact them or?
Susan, I assume you've been in touch with Chris.
So it wasn't Chris, it was Shauna is her name, and I did send her a reminder last Thursday. I sent her something again at like 7:20 when I didn't see anyone on, and I've heard nothing. So I don't know if something happened, but they were well aware of it.
are we prepared to do it without them, or are there concerns or thoughts or people think they need to hear a presentation from them on this, or?
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We just did one of these a couple of weeks, I mean, at our last meeting, a
Yeah.
poll hearing. You know, they don't ask for them unless they need them. It's on Ponderosa Road. It looks like it's in a good location. You
You're
know,
willing
if
to
we- are
move
we-
ahead?
Well, we'd have to then reopen, if we want to
Yeah.
reopen the hearing.
I guess that's what I'm asking. Are we ready to reconvene here? Are things working now? Okay. So I'll get a sense of the board. Were we thinking about moving ahead and ready to reopen the hearing? I'd ask for a motion to reopen it.
Motion to reopen the hearing?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 So the hearing's been reopened. So we have material in our packet. Is there anybody, Michael, do you have a presentation or anything you want to say about it, or Jen?
I'll just let you know that the deputy chief is here to provide this update on what's known as our comprehensive emergency management plan. So this is an update of our prior management plan.
Talking about
Yeah,
the
I
poll
meant
hearing.
about the
Oh.
poll hearing. So
I thought-
we'll get it done.
Oh, no,
quickly.
I
We're
wasn't-
asking if, do you feel like, I mean,
Yeah.
I think we all think that with the information that we have, we can move forward with this without NSTAR Eversource being here.
Yeah, I've
If
got no
that's okay
concern.
with you.
Okay.
I've got no concerns with that. What I would relay to Eversource, Susan, is that this is kind of a courtesy in terms of approving this without them being here, and they really
Yeah,
should
it's-
be here.
Yeah, this will not happen again.
So-
Next time
Oh,
that we
good.
just suspend the hearing until the next meeting.
All
Okay.
right.
I move that we accept the grant of location to install one pole 3/2-3XA and one anchor guy on Ponderosa Road based on the material presented in our packet.
So I've got a motion second. Any further discussion or questions? Are folks ready to vote on this? I'll ask for a vote then. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, so the poll location has been approved. So
We
I'll
need
ask.
we didn't close the hearing.
Motion to close the
about that.
hearing.
I'll second that.
We get a motion to close the hearing. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, the motion's closed. Yeah, so we don't need to vote, we're already voted and approved it. Okay. So thank you.
But I would say that next time, if they're not here, we will suspend the hearing until the next meeting. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Seems a little unusual.
It's, we don't want it to be a habit.
Right.
Okay, so as Michael said, Deputy Chief Morrigan is here to present the comprehensive emergency management plan. So
Yeah.
Lynn, come forward. Do you have a slideshow for us,
Yes.
or, okay, are things
It's
you
on
need
the
to get
computer.
set up? Okay, so you're all set then, it sounds like.
That's okay.
We have it in our packet.
Yeah, this is the actual plan, I think.
Yeah, that's the plan. This is the shelter plan.
Oh, boy.
This is the hazard mitigation plan. They kind of all work together.
She brought props.
Oh, boy, very good.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you. After I walked through the new Mendez school, are you sorry you retired a little early?
I can tell you that I've had a few moments where I've thought, oh boy, I'd like to be here for this, and but all in all, it was the right move for me. But I can say the biggest thing is that when I drive around town and I see kids on bikes and stuff, I really miss the kids.
Yeah, I bet. It's a beautiful facility.
It's a beautiful facility.
really
Thank
is.
you.
Okay, so is Sue gonna do that, or?
Oh, you should be able to see it then.
It should be on the computer. She put it in with the flash drive earlier.
So, the SEMP plan is something that we have to update every 5 to 7 years, along with our other plans, shelter plan, the hazard mitigation plan. Chief Roby was able to secure a grant that paid for this. So we chose the Edward Collins Center for Public Management to assist us in updating the current plan. Stephen Foley was the representative from the Collins Center, and together we worked closely in updating the current plan. Before I start the actual PowerPoint presentation, I just wanted to give you a very quick synopsis of what the the plan entails. The plan provides a framework for the emergency management system and addresses the roles and responsibilities of the town departments and outside agencies when responding to a large-scale planned event or an emergency disaster within the community. Just the arrows or the click? What's the best way?
So let's do this, Deputy. That way you have access to that. And there you go. So you should now be set up to just use the down button.
Okay, just
Okay.
scrolling down.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I thought that I would make a pretty easy PowerPoint presentation, make it a little bit of fun, just kind of, rather than kill you guys with words and stuff like that, I put a lot of pictures in, so kind of make it fun. And I figured the best way to actually break it down was to answer 5 questions about the plan. Who, what, when, why, and how. So starting at the beginning, scroll down.
Yeah, it's a little slower.
What is the SEM plan? The SEM plan is the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan. And what it does is it encompasses the 4 phases of emergency management cycle: preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. We use this plan for 2 different types of response scenarios. Planned events, and probably the best example of that would be the Boston Marathon every year, and immediate response incidents, which would be something like a train derailment, something that we would not be able to plan for, so to speak. So who is included in the SEM plan? All the town big hitters, the big players, the town manager. The town's emergency manager is actually our very own fire chief, Chief Roby, the police chief, DPW superintendent, Board of Health director, senior center director, IT director. So I think that we all know what each department does. So I just threw up a couple of pictures. Obviously, the fire department responds to medical emergencies, fires, extrications, amongst other things. The police department, criminal investigations, traffic control, community policing. DPW, barrier protections, road closures. A big part of the SEM plan is tree and debris cleanup. Huge part of any type of disaster in the town. It would play a huge role. Board of Health, we know how much they do between vaccinations, food and water supply, medication distribution. Senior Center, outreach programs, support services, free vaccinations, fun activities like sponsored lunch and fitness programs. Our IT department, obviously technology, the way it is these days, we could not live without our communications for all our school facilities, town buildings, departments. So, like I mentioned before, when do we use the SEM plan? When do we actually execute it? 2 different types of response scenarios: a planned or an anticipated incident, like a hurricane that we know is going to come, extreme temperatures we can plan for, but probably the best is the Boston Marathon, that every year, and when we had COVID, we had it twice in 1 year. That was quite an event. And then obviously immediate response, major traffic accidents, train derailment, active shooter, or a major crime incident. So those are the 2 main scenarios that the town manager would execute the SEM plan and bring in all the players. So why is the SEM plan different than anything else? And the biggest reason is that all the players that I mentioned before come together. Once the SEMP plan by the town manager is executed, everybody comes together at the Emergency Operations Center and they work together to mitigate whatever the incident is. The SEMP provides, by bringing all those heavy hitters together, face-to-face contact. Once the SEMP plan is initiated by the town manager, all the team members are called the emergency management team. They have the ability, once they're together in one location, to put together an incident action plan for whatever the incident is. The ability to be able to get resources from the person sitting across from you. If I'm sitting across from Doug, from DPW, and I need heavier trucks, I can just ask him to get them. And it's face-to-face, immediate response. Information sharing is a huge component of this. Being able to assess the situation ongoing, is the incident action plan being successful? And if not, what do we need to do to change it? All that can be done at a round table conversation. So it really creates an environment that allows us to mitigate an incident much quicker and with all the resources necessary. So I figured I'd give you two examples, a planned event and an unplanned event. And as we know, the unplanned event happens every year in town, is the Boston Marathon. We can't not plan for 30,000 people running through our town at one time. So again, going back over the 4 phases of the emergency management, preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. For a planned event, the preparation for the Boston Marathon, if you talk to the BAA, their preparation starts the day after the event for the next year. But for us, for the fire chief, the police chief, their designee, we start meetings in January, 4 months before the actual event is going to start. So the preparation for that huge scale event starts 4 months for us beforehand. So we are totally prepared for what to expect in the town. Mitigation. The day of the event, the EOC, the SEMP plan, is actually activated by the town manager. The EOC is activated, and currently the EOC is the brand new facility at 12 Union Street. So this year was the first time that we got to use the facility, and it was really awesome. It was really, really great. Not only does the EOC get activated, but the shelters get activated. So not only is the SEMP plan activated, we incorporate the shelter plan. So we have to incorporate all components of the SEMP plan for the Boston City Marathon once it runs through the town. The response, all the departments that we just talked about, the DPW, the fire department, the police department, they all have to be on response. We have to split the town in half, as you guys know, so because we can't cross over. So that means we have to bring in outside agencies to help us. Town of Holliston, sure, but we have multiple towns that support us during that event. The police department, they have multiple agencies that come in and support the Boston City Marathon. And then the recovery phases, there's always a debriefing. DPW has to go around and clean up all the mess that everybody makes, all the water bottles, everything else. So they do a tremendous job with that. But there's always a debriefing at the end of it. So that's a planned event. My example for an unplanned event was about 4 years ago. We had a winter event with high winds, and its power lines were taken down by trees and tree limbs, and it affected the downtown area. So the public safety was okay because we have generators, but it impacted the downtown area. And the big concern for us was the elderly complexes. 119 Main Street and Park Road lost power. So once we identified that, the town manager activated the SEMP plan, and we met at 91 Main Street at that time. We met and we identified the problems that we had to deal with. We initiated an incident action plan. We brought in Eversource because they were a big proponent of getting the power back, obviously. But all the players were there. DPW, they assisted Eversource with the debris take-up. Fire department, police department, even Jen went around knocking on all the doors of 119 Main Street, Park Road, making sure that all the seniors, checking on them, make sure that if they needed any assistance. The temporary shelter was opened at the senior center. So Jen Wolfing, Joanne, they took care of that. So by us making contact with all of the seniors in that area, we were able to allow them the opportunity, if they wanted to go to the senior center. We used it as a warming center, but also for powering up electronics. That's what it ultimately ended up by being used for. To be honest with you, we spoke to hundreds of seniors, and maybe one or two of them actually utilized the shelter. They are very tough, and none of them wanted to leave their own home. So after about 24 hours, and with the assistance of all the town players in the SEM plan, Eversource was able to resume the power. And we were able to constantly give updates to the town. Again, this is bringing in IT, social media updates were constantly with all the town. So once the power was resumed, then we did a debriefing with Eversource and the other emergency management team players, and we were able to suspend the incident. So it really worked out very well. So that's it in a nutshell. I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Go ahead, Brandy. Thank you, Deputy Chief. That was
Welcome.
Thank you very much. It was
very
a
important.
good report. I have a couple questions. One, I noticed that the school superintendent isn't part of the team. How do the schools get kind of pulled in if there's something that would directly affect either the schools themselves or the kids?
So usually if we were to execute the SEM plan, the schools would not be functioning.
Okay.
They would be, our shelters are the schools.
Okay.
So we wouldn't have the children occupy the schools because number one reason is that we utilize them as the high school is the primary shelter and the middle school is the secondary shelter.
Okay.
So in the event of any kind of disaster and emergency, we would, unless it's happening in the school, then that's a different situation.
Right.
But no, we would not have the kids go to school.
Okay.
We would want to utilize that school for the shelter.
Okay, thanks. And I have one other question. How does the reverse 911 system kind of come into play? And how do we make sure, like, residents, because we had received an email actually today about, sort of notification process, like if there is, kind of paralleling what's happened in Maui, to make sure that residents hear about whatever incident there might be happening. How does the reverse 911 kind of play into
So we
that?
have a red alert system that we actually had a meeting about last week. And the residents, we can do the reverse 911 and get information out to them that way, but it's up to the residents to sign up for it. There's all different levels of that, what kind of information that they want to sign up for and receive. So we do have that available to all the residents. They just need to go to the town website and sign up for what they want to know about, because there's all different varying levels.
Sure.
But we would utilize it in an emergency, in a disaster, absolutely.
Okay.
We would utilize that. But that would be the primary way to get the information out. And then on top of that, the social media websites.
Sure. Okay, thank you. And so that might be we may want to kind of go back out. It's been a while since we've talked about the reverse 911 system and how people can sign up for it. It might not be a bad idea for us to kind of do a reminder to residents that that's
Follow-up
an important
question to Brandy's. If we ever felt it was truly urgent and we needed all members of the community to know, would we sort of bypass the people who have signed up and just get it out to everybody in the community? Do we have that
I'm not
ability?
sure if we have that capability.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So depending on what's actually happening though at the state level, they can push.
Okay.
And so so if you're driving around and there's a tornado warning, the National Weather Service at a federal level is going to push to everybody.
Okay.
And so that happens through the
But we
federal
used
From a
to get-
national or state
We
level.
used to get not routine, but we used to get public service calls. It was always Ed. I remember
Yeah,
the voice, so-
and so that's actually one of the reasons why we met not too long ago, is to see if we could determine some kind of standard as to when we're going to utilize the reverse 911 system. what we ended up deciding was that really it does come about on a case-by-case basis. But, I mean, one of the things, Brandy, to your point, is that what we've tried to do, I think, in the last 3 or 4 weeks is push out all of our communication methods into like one graphic. I know that we've put in the newsletter and in social media. And part of that communications page does have, you can sign up for the Code Red system there. So that's something that we'll continue to do. Do something for emergency preparedness number.
Yeah, so September is Emergency Preparedness Month, and so the state will push out a lot of information about how you can get information at a state level. So we probably can, sort of piggyback on that on the local level.
Yeah, but we also do whatever it takes. I mean, as the deputy mentioned, during that particular event, we were literally knocking on doors, doing whatever we can to get the word out there and let people know that, here's what's happening. Here are the resources that are available to you. And is there, any way that we can help get them to avail themselves of those resources? Now that I think about it, that was a really, it was a bad situation, but it was a great example of the team coming together. And there's so many different parts that the emergency management director has to coordinate. There's the medical reserve corps, there's the utilities, all of that stuff.
Any other question? Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Deputy, great presentation. Appreciate all the effort that you folks do to have this plan in line. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about all the different scenarios that could possibly happen in Ashland, and I'm just wondering, especially in the downtown area where we have a multitude of, senior citizens living in a very unique area. I was wondering if the owners of the property at 119 Main Street, and I know that Ashland Housing Authority, if they wouldn't install a generator to run those units, should they lose power, that would alleviate an awful lot of work, as you just, provided that, everybody was going door to door knocking. I'm sure you would do that anyway to make sure that everybody was okay. But to have, generators at these locations. And I would also add President's Row, Ashland Commons, because there is a multitude of seniors that live in that location as well. So you don't want to forget them as well as part of that program.
Absolutely, yeah, that would be exceptional if they could do that. But they're all different departments, though. One is framing housing, the other's Ashland housing, so they would.
And the utilities actually help with that. It wasn't that long ago that we had a situation at Park Road where the power went out. I don't remember if it was a pole that was hit or something, and Eversource actually came in and provided emergency power for them until everything was up and running.
Just
No.
thinking maybe that's something we should look into and talk about powers to be and see if it's doable. I know it always comes down to the coin, but at the same time, you don't want to put a price on someone's life.
There's a lot of grants that are out there, so maybe the housing authority could apply for some of the grants and maybe get that. Definitely would be a great case, for sure.
I had a, Claudia, did you have a question or a comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you as well. And just to Brandy's point about the superintendent of schools, not that I want to volunteer him or maybe in the future her for any more responsibilities, but it might not be a bad idea because number one, they do have the familiarity with the buildings, right? Which obviously you all have access to, but they would have the knowledge of the workings of the building and what might be needed. And then additionally, they are a key in terms of getting in contact, with families, and they use it all the time. Now, obviously, that's only a portion of our population, but nevertheless, it's a significant number of people that, so I don't know, it might be worth considering bringing that
Is that the
position.
Blackboard system?
Yes.
That, yeah.
Yeah. Well, SMORE is the, it's really the email system, but.
I just had is there anywhere in when these things happen, when something important happens. Michael communicates with the select board and kind of keeps us abreast of things. Is there anything in anything in the plan regarding the select board and communication or with them, or, you know, is that something that has, you know, do we have any kind, what's our role in this? If I know we're an advisory policy body, we're not actually out there directing traffic, but in terms of, except for Claudia, I think Joe was going to do it. But, you know, what is the role of select board, of the political leaders of the community?
Yeah, I mean, I believe it would depend on the level of the disaster. I mean, if it goes to the state level or even the federal level, then obviously decisions would have to be made, financial decisions. So I believe that you folks would be very much involved. And again, that depends on the scale of the incident. But I think as it expands and gets more complex, I think the more that you would be hands-on involved with the decision-making.
Yeah, and I think really information sharing and like making sure that you're equipped with, okay, this is what happened, this is what we're doing, this is what the plans are in the future, because people are going to come to you and go, okay, well, what's going on? You're making sure you're equipped with that information is key to this whole to these whole processes.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions? Or go ahead, Yolanda.
Just a comment, really. Thank you. I think having these in place is so important for a community, and as our community grows and we see different people and just different groups coming in, I think it's so important. So thank you for doing the work, and thank you for the presentation.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. The only thing I'd add is, like, given recent events in the world, it just seems that all sorts of unexpected, unplanned events happen, and it's good that we're got a plan in place, and I would just encourage you to think broadly about what could go wrong, because it seems to happen.
Yes.
You know? So anyway, well, thank you.
And that is that it's very important to have the hazard mitigation plan, because that identifies the risks and the vulnerabilities in the town and makes us aware. By identifying it, makes us aware of it, so we can pre-plan for incidents that may happen because of these vulnerabilities.
That reminds me, do we have any severe, like, flooding threat? That seems to be the thing. We have the river downtown, and
that is
but we
probably
seem to have
one of
escaped
the highest
major
hazards
issues
in town is flooding. We have 6 dams in town, so that's 6 opportunities.
Yeah, and multitude of culverts. I will tell you, like, the past couple of storms have really, really taxed our workforce in terms of just responding to and handling damage that's been caused by the torrential floods that seem to happen now every other week at least.
Right.
So is it it's time for us to sort of do a review, or at least have Doug, or I'm sure it's an ongoing thing, of our culverts, especially downtown where we are potentially vulnerable, to look at what's going on? And I don't think these rain water incidences are going to diminish. I think if anything, the 100-year storm, we're going to start seeing it every 50 years.
Or every year.
So is it time to do a review of what we need and look at what we're spending to make sure that damage that is done is corrected so that it doesn't get worse?
Yeah, we actually took a very big step forward with that, with the creation of the Stormwater Enterprise Fund.
Right.
And so now we have dedicated staff who actually go and proactively
That's good.
Examine and analyze our culvert system and things of that nature, our stormwater system, to make sure that it can handle the storms that we had. And we've actually made a lot of repairs recently because we do have the funds to do that on some culvert work. I know specifically there was one on Oak Street that was major, that was recently redone. Also measuring out our outfalls and identifying them as well. And then we're also going to be in the process of updating our municipal vulnerability preparedness program.
Yeah.
And so that's part of that as well.
Okay.
But Evan and Kevin Langmeyer now has kind of transitioned more to a stormwater role. They've done a great job.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Deputy.
You're very
you
welcome.
for
Thank you
coming
for
in.
your time.
Thank you for everything you all do every day, too.
Yes.
Great work.
Are copies of those in the town manager's?
Yes,
Okay.
they will be sent to all the departments.
Okay.
I'll be also sending a copy to Nina.
Oh, good.
So there's a town, there's a state, there's a federal sent plan.
Yep.
So they will get a copy of it and make any adjustments and guidelines, anything so this property is.
Okay, take a look through. Great.
Now,
Thank you.
Would a copy be available for the library, or is that something that?
We can make one. Well, we want to be careful.
Well,
You don't want
that was
to,
my
yeah.
question.
We
You
don't want to
be
make
careful.
it too public, just to
Right.
give
Right.
people an
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
opportunity. But it would certainly be available at the departments.
Yeah.
At the request, okay.
Okay. Great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next item on our agenda is a vote to accept. Are you all right, Yolanda? It's okay if I continue on?
Yeah,
here?
go ahead, keep going.
The next item is a vote to accept and sign the cell tower contract with T-Mobile Northeast LLC for the Cedar Street water tank. So if you'll recall, I believe we discussed this at our last meeting and were prepared to approve and move forward, but had to wait for some documents. I have the actual contract here, and the town council spoke of it briefly earlier today. Are there any questions or discussions or any other thoughts about this before we move to a vote on it?
Yeah, is it going to improve our cell service in town?
We'll see. We'll see about that. But I believe the particular vote in this instance is to authorize Rob, you as the chair,
Yeah.
to sign this on behalf of the
Yeah.
board.
So say, so, and we had discussed this at the last meeting.
I believe.
Okay, so,
believe
because
we
we have,
did. Yeah.
right, because we don't have anything in our packet, just want to make sure nothing
Right.
has
And
changed
the actual
since.
contract is here, if anybody wants to look at it.
Again.
Yeah, okay. So this, so the suggested motion, I think we can move ahead without Yolanda. I don't think.
You want
she-
me
I
to
can-
read it?
I was gonna say, I can make a motion.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'll make a motion to authorize the chair to sign the Cedar Street cell tower contract between T-Mobile Northeast LLC and the town of Ashland.
Second.
A second. So the motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0-1 with Yolanda absent temporarily.
Yep.
Okay, so that's done. So the next item is discuss the results of the July 26, 2023 election. I
Sure.
think that's your cue, Michael.
Sure, and this can be brief because a lot of information has already been shared and put out there. But, first of all, we did have an election on July 26th for the sole purpose of seeing if the town is supportive of getting out of civil service. And we had a total of 314 people vote, which is about 2.56%. We can discuss that a little bit later. But it passed overwhelmingly, 253 for and 61 voted against that measure. Really have to thank the town clerk staff, Cindy and Chris and Jean, as well as the poll workers, for assembling a special election so quickly and executing it so well. The reason it was done so quickly is because the quicker we were able to do this, the quicker we were able to address some of our hiring issues within the police department, which, as you know, the staffing had gotten down to critical levels. And to that end, I really want to thank the police department and the police association specifically for their work in getting to an agreement that supported this and also putting into place a process to replace the civil service process. So just going back again to the voter turnout at 2.56%, it was relatively low. It's not the lowest we have seen, and we actually had lower in a regular election, believe it or not, a couple of times. But obviously, we aspire to doing better than that, and we will. Hopefully, we do not have many special elections in the future, I should say. But again, we'll continue to look at what we do.
So I have a
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
Attorney Mead was talking about sending off the paperwork or whatever is required. I assume that goes to the state. So what is the process? So the state has to it's not the legislature because we didn't have to go through that process. So what is the sort of like the next steps in the timeline for us to be able to officially say
We're out?
Yeah.
So we sent a letter in the package to the state's Civil Service Division. They take that, they review it, and then they should give us a letter of acknowledgement and make sure that everything meets their qualifications and standards. So, many of the state offices are complaining about being understaffed, and so things are taking a little bit longer. I'm hoping 1 to 2 months. So,
Okay. Any other?
Should be ready for by the end of the year.
it should not be any later than that. As long, yeah, we're talking the state, at least it's not the MBTA, so that's a positive.
Oh, is that on the updates?
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I think any other questions about the election? The next item is the Kitty Fenwall Car Show and Sponsorship Opportunity, which we have the letter in our packet here. Is there anything to talk about with this, Michael? Or
Well, this is actually an idea that Susan had, and Susan, do you want to just explain kind of your rationale for suggesting it?
Sure. So I just thought it would be a fun thing for the board to get involved in. It's an opportunity to give back to the community. It's a small sponsorship. It's $200, and I just thought it was a goodwill to give back to the community and kind of get the board out there in a positive light.
Great. So this is an effect, and what's the source of the funds for this? Would this be
the gift account, right?
I would say the gift account, and the money goes towards Relay for Life. And last year they raised $15,000, so they're hoping to beat that goal this year.
Yeah. Question? Sure. Go ahead.
So it just so happens that because the show is coming up on September 9th, I had the opportunity today to interview Peter Comedian, who runs the show. And basically, even though it's called the Kitty Fenwall Car Show, it's only because it sits on their property. And it was originally their Relay for Life team that was looking for different ways to raise funds for their Relay for Life team. And it grew from their first show in 2013 of 50 cars, and last year they had over 300 cars.
Sure.
And the idea is that if we do a sponsorship, we can then present a trophy at the end of the day. And he said it's not the cleanest car. It's basically whoever's there representing the select board can say, I like this car and we're going to give them a trophy kind of thing. And it's just, the sponsorships helps them. The car fee is very low. It's only $10 to bring your car in. There's no charge for people to go and look at the cars. So when we discussed this at the agenda setting meeting, I thought it's $200. It goes to a good cause. It goes toward cancer research. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't know anyone that I know that hasn't been touched by cancer in some sort of way. So I would recommend we do this.
Okay. And other thoughts or comments? I don't think there's anything that keeps us from using our gift account for something like this. It's not something we usually don't do charitable stuff, but this seems like a worthy cause. I mean, I guess it's a little different. We usually fund things through grant applications, but
I think it's a great idea, and I love the idea of maybe awarding a trophy at the end of the day.
Yep.
I think that it would be nice to have some kind of theme around what the trophy would be from
the select board.
okay, if somebody's
I'm curious about the hours of the event, just because that's also going to be the day of the.
It's a very busy day here in town.
The ribbon cutting ceremony for the Mendez School.
Yep.
And it is also going to be an opportunity later in the afternoon for the community to visit the school as well.
So they typically wrap up around 1:30. So
this is your typical Relay for Life, right? Where you get like tons of people.
no, this is not a Relay for Life.
It's not.
This is a car show.
So
that happens at Kitty Fenwall.
But
the money goes toward
but
Relay
like
for Life. They're not
Relay.
running. They're not doing the relay action.
Yeah,
this is
right.
fundraising
Okay.
for
So it's
their
a little
Relay for
different.
Life
Yeah,
team.
yeah, gotcha.
It's a car show. I mean, if you've ever driven by,
Yeah, same as their usual.
their
one.
usual car show. Yeah.
Okay.
So
we had a motion on this?
I move that we support and sponsor the Kitty Fenwall Car Show by using $200 from our gift account as a sponsorship.
Second.
motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Motion carries 5-0.
And Susan, thank you for bringing this
Yeah,
to us.
thanks, Susan.
We've done stuff like this before every once in a while. Like we've done
Yeah.
like the Clocker Club has had like a golf. We've sponsored
Yeah.
a hole at
Yeah.
the golf
Yeah.
tournament and things like that. So this is
Okay.
good. This is a good thing.
All right, so that, next is the warrant, right? Did I get that right? So open the warrant for the special town meeting to be held on Wednesday, November 29th, 2023. So who wants to talk about that?
Yeah, we're going to turn this one over to Jen because she put the guidance together.
So the warrant guidance, which I believe is in your packet,
Yes.
sort of just lays out the timeline. So for a special town meeting on the 29th of November, we'll open it tomorrow morning so we can send out guidance to all the committees. And then people will have until October 6th to get a notice of intent to me, and then we'll start building out the warrant in hopes to close it on your first meeting in November, which I believe is November 1st. For a special town meeting, we have to post the warrant at least 14 days ahead. So that gives us a little bit of time between when we close the warrant and then sort of finalize the warrant packet that will be up and available for everybody by the 14th of November.
Just
Thank you.
quick question. So this year we're planning to do special town meeting after Thanksgiving. Usually we do it before, right? Don't we do it before?
Very.
It's been all over the
But
place.
all
We've
over the
done it
place.
we've done it in the first week of December as well. So,
Okay.
Yeah. it's
Okay.
Sort of.
Just the time. I was just going to ask, like, is it just because like the timing, making sure that there's enough time to give people to file their intentions and be able to
Prepare and
Yeah. Okay.
And also to make sure that we have our free cash certified as well.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Any particular warrant items we care to just bring up at the moment, or the expected, or things
so
that
you've
will?
got a couple.
Yeah, there's a few that are expected. I'm expecting the Sustainability Committee plans to bring back the enhanced stretch code. They were talking
right,
about
yep.
the tree bylaw. I don't think that will make it for the special town. It will likely be on May. I think that town council spoke about the High Street easement for access. We may have Brogden Road acceptance. We're still waiting for the plans, so we'd have to do a road layout. And so we were hoping that they had it to us by September 1st. So if we don't, then it will likely be pushed to the annual town meeting. And then CPC has voted to recommend funding for the dog park, and so that will also be on here. And then we can do our normal sort of senior tax exemptions, free cash allocations.
Okay,
One additional one that's recently come to my attention, and I talked to DPW Director Small about this, is there's a potential issue with our water treatment plant. Nothing that can impact the safety of it, but or safety of our water source, but could impact the color and the taste. Again, nothing to do with safety, but those are important qualities as well. We might need to put a borrowing on for this town meeting to do that work, to order the parts and install it and do that type of work. So.
Is that related to silt from Legacy Farms?
Well, we've made there's a correlation, but it doesn't necessarily equate to a causation. So, but
push it that way.
when we're talking about significant amounts of money, people push back.
I understand.
So,
I
yeah,
understand.
I'm not sure if we would be able to successfully challenge that. So.
Well, let's keep trying.
I was just gonna say-
Well, that's so. Not only that, I mean, we're also looking at grants,
Okay.
making potentially some grant applications for that as well. So what I've asked Doug to do is to work with Brittany to look at what we can do within our existing rate structure, and see what we come up with, see what kind of gap, if any, there is, and we'll figure out a plan on how to take care of it.
So the water enterprise fund is not enough to cover the costs?
Well, it would come in there. I think the question is whether or not we can do it within the current rate structure for the water enterprise fund.
And when are people seeing these changes to the water now?
No,
Or we're
not
just
right now.
Expecting
And this
them,
isn't
or-
an emergency situation. We're trying to take care of it before it becomes an issue. Color and taste become an issue. So,
So,
Trying to be proactive.
so I guess so our color and taste, absolutely gonna be impacted if we don't.
Eventually, yes, Claudia, eventually.
Sounds like more to come on this one.
Yeah, we'll have more about that. We're really kind of at the fact-finding stage right now. Right now, what we know is that we do need to replace it. It hasn't gone yet. It hasn't broke yet. But again, I think, Joe, you just mentioned we're trying to be proactive in this case.
Okay. Keep us informed.
All right. So we'll need a motion.
I move that we open the warrant for the special town meeting scheduled for Wednesday, November 29th, 2023.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of opening the warrant, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, none. So motion carries 5-0. Okay, so the next one is discuss the home rule petition requesting additional liquor licenses. Michael, do you have a presentation about this? Or?
No, I believe I'd
Discuss it.
included information in your packet about
Yeah.
what the request would be, and so the total number would be 16. The way this has been broken down, and this has been suggested by Beth Reynolds, is that we have 6 dedicated for downtown redevelopment, 6 dedicated for Route 126 redevelopment, and then any other need in town, 4 related to those. And that would total 16. I'm not wedded to this structure personally. If you wanted to do, just general and take off the restrictions for downtown and 126, but the way Beth puts it, it does make sense. I mean, I think we could do it this way.
I just had, before we get in, just a clarification, but this is 16. Are these all alcohol?
These are all alcohol, right, Susan?
Oops.
Sorry, I was just going to text you. That actually wasn't Beth's breakdown. That was mine.
Oh, okay.
We worked on it together, but ultimately we were trying to line up what we thought we might potentially need, but we would prefer not to have them district to a certain area because then it limits your ability to move them from one location to another. And these would be all alcohol.
Okay.
And all alcohol on premises, so we're not looking to,
Yes, on premises.
so no retail
Correct.
sales. Okay,
So-
I just want to
Right.
clarify. Yes, restaurants and things.
Question, so these are for restaurant, but we know that we've gotten at least one request for someone else to do an all alcohol retail license.
Okay.
Do we need to do these separately, or would it make it messy if we tried to add one more? I mean, I know the all alcohol, the retail is tied to the number of residents and things like that, but would it make sense to look at doing that with this?
Potentially. I mean, we do have one remaining.
Wine and
for
malt.
wine and malt.
Yeah. Well, this is Wine Empire, right? You're talking
Right,
about.
like, a year ago,
He made a
we
request.
got the request from Sean Luca. He's like, can you look at requesting an additional all alcohol retail license? And at that point, it
And- and-
didn't seem like there was appetite. But
Right.
if we're doing this,
Well, is
to
that part
do
of this?
pouring.
Yeah, and that's part, just to clarify, but this is part of that same process. We could then, the home rule petition, we could include what Yolanda's suggesting as part of this process. Is that correct?
Well, it is a home rule petition, so we can ask for anything.
Right.
If we wanted to. I think
All right.
maybe what would be important is for me to do a little research into if we do ask for that type of license, does that
Mm-hmm. Is it gonna mess it up?
Is that going to mess it
Right.
up?
right. And I would agree. I think if we're going to go for this, we need to just say the number of licenses we're looking for and not necessarily distinguish where they're going to be used in town. Because something may come up on Route 126 initially and they use it and then they go away. And if we then have to keep it on 126, but something else pops up someplace else, I think we need to have flexibility. If we can get this to work, we need to have flexibility on where we can use them.
Are you okay with the total number?
I was going to ask people, what
Yeah.
are people's thoughts on that?
So my understanding from Representative Lewis is that we should ask one time, like this, it's like one bite at the apple.
Yep.
So if we're looking at, so we shouldn't say, okay, well, we're probably only going to need 7 of them out of the 16, so we should only do 7. We should be very forward thinking as to how many potentially we could use. So I think for me, it's, 16 is a reasonable number, given the amount of development that's happening, both downtown and 126 and the other mixed-use developments. I know that there's been talk, like Senti's Kitchen is going in at 12 Pond, hopefully, right? Still, yeah. And I know, like, he was looking to do an alcohol license. There's establishments that haven't even come forward yet to really request it. So I'm comfortable with 16.
4, yeah. So we have 6 that we haven't used right now, if you include 2 wine and malt. So we would add 16. That does, from my own, and this is all very inexact, but my own looking at it, like 6 licenses in downtown, like that in addition to what we're having now. Do we see that many establishments really?
Well, I think Yolanda just made the point it may make sense to remove those restrictions.
Well,
but I mean,
think
just in
about
terms of
the
the
potential,
planning.
right? So the brewery coming into the firehouse, well, they're covered.
Yeah.
If changes happen to the mill buildings, right? You could have
1
a
or 2.
couple of things there.
Yeah.
And
right?
Homer Ave, which is
Homer
under-
Ave
yeah,
is
which is
stuff
in front of
coming
the
in.
planning board.
Think about some of the communities that people talk to us about what they like. Waltham, Moody Street, all the restaurants there, one right after the other. Hudson and all the developments that's going on in their downtown.
Yeah, I think Waltham's
Right.
substantially larger
Waltham's
than
substantially larger, but look at Hudson and look at some of the development and some of the changes that have happened there.
Yeah.
And it's because they have more restaurants, and most of those restaurants have liquor licenses.
I think it's a good I think this is the right thing to do. I guess 16 just strikes me as a lot, and we have 6 already. And I know there's one bite at the apple thing, but this thing only takes a couple years to get through at the most. So
remember though, just because you have the licenses
Doesn't mean
does
you
not
need to
mean
use
you have to
that
issue
too.
them.
That's
No,
what
I
I was going to say
understand,
as well.
But I think a future board would think, well, we got the licenses, we may need to give them out, So I would think,
Yeah, but it's all potential,
yeah.
right? So I think that's part of what we need is we need to have that potential for growth and for the ability to. Beth has done her homework, and if you talk to Beth about this, she's like, I have businesses who want to come to Ashland, who want to bring their restaurants to Ashland, who want to bring their things to Ashland, but they know we're limited for liquor licenses.
Well, but we aren't though. We have 4 that we haven't given out.
Yeah, but I think we also have a couple businesses, like the Warren Conference Center is going to need another one, correct,
Yep.
Susan?
Potentially
And-
because of what they're looking to do.
and Fish and Game.
Right.
Another,
Does this include
The
Fish and
problem
Game?
is any business that expands and is adding another building, if it's not attached to their licensed building, they require a separate license.
Well, what do other people think? Anybody else? Joe? Claudia?
I was looking at the, Mr. Chair, sorry, I was looking at some of the potential needs and the redevelopment stuff. The MBTA train station.
That was
What are we gonna do? Put a bar by the train tracks?
I
don't know.
one. I was wondering
I
about
just-
that one.
I'm thinking out loud here.
You never know, right?
You kind of do, you have a bar there now.
You have a bar there now.
Oh, you have a restaurant there.
Okay.
You have
But
a
with
restaurant.
MBTA communities, there might
Yeah.
be more mixed use that go
Right.
in there. So,
Right, at some point.
I think that's what people were meaning, the area around.
Yeah.
Okay,
Not
well,
the,
that's.
not the
yeah, not
parking
like at
lot.
the train station.
Well,
Although
again,
that
it
would
just-
make it more interesting for
It would
us
definitely
people
make
on the
it more
train.
There
interesting.
could be change of use for some of the buildings on Pleasant Street, right? Who knows?
Well, I think it's a good proposal. Are there other people think that 16 is the right number to, I won't stand in the way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why, how much we should try to control this. I think it's a good thing for the community in terms of having restaurants and, the ability for people to go out and have a drink with a friend. And, it definitely is an attraction. Food, unfortunately, for the restaurant business isn't where they make most of their money. So
And
if
the
we
poor.
expect to attract
And our
restaurants.
And our
and-
plan is here is restaurants as opposed to clubs. But, this would also clubs if someone opened a club or, which, it's
Depending
not
on the
necessarily
right,
a bad
depending on the
thing.
kind of club, might not be a bad thing.
All right. Joe, do you have any thoughts?
No, I don't have a problem if Brandy spoke with Jack about this, and he said, you have one bite of the apple, you might as well, go for it. I don't have a problem with that. And like Mike said, you don't have to issue them. The only problem with not issuing them is if somebody wants one, and you better have a
Good
valid reason for not
Yeah, right.
for not issuing. Because if not, now we're talking about legal fees. You're gonna have litigations.
Right.
So you need to be careful on that.
I think
So-
one of the things we should think that this might actually happen over the, say, next 20 years. And are we comfortable with that? That would
I won't be here. 20
Sure
years.
you will. All right, so.
I don't know if we can.
Still on the board.
I don't know if we can control what happens in the next 20 years, right?
Right.
Well, but I think realistically, you shouldn't have, if you don't think you want to issue them, we shouldn't get them. So I think that's my take on that. But anyway.
Well, we'll do our due prudence and diligence
Right.
on
Future
what needs to get
boards
done.
will.
Right, when
for
people
future
submit
acts.
and request and,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, think
See if
about it
there's a
this
need.
way, the old adage, measure twice, cut once.
Right.
Right.
So, it's probably better to have more and issue less than to be in a situation where people want more and
And
you
you
don't
can't
have
give it.
enough.
Well, like Fish and Game, right? Fish and Game has requested a second one, and then we're like, okay, well, what does that mean to other things that are potentially coming?
Why do they
And
need a
we then
second one?
approve,
Oh,
because they have two, they're gonna have two
Oh,
areas,
two separate
right?
buildings.
Instead of, they have their building and then they have their field
Okay.
that they wanna be able to do it.
So we always hear, and to that point, we always hear from residents, oh, we want more businesses in Ashland.
Right.
And if we don't have a liquor license available and we're turning away potential businesses, that's,
Well, yeah.
that's
okay.
that's a detriment.
And that's what
Right.
we're hearing from, I mean, that's
Yeah.
why this came up.
I just have one question. So with respect to the Warren Conference Center, you said something about the fact that if the building isn't attached to the current liquor license premises, location, they have to require an additional liquor license. Now, in a letter that we saw earlier, there was like 4 or 5 different locations. Are you telling me that they need to have a liquor license for each one of those locations because they're not attached to the current premise that has the license?
So Joe, what their situation is right now is they're looking to add a members club. This is all potential. It hasn't come into us yet. It's a discussion. When they open the members club, they will be required to apply for a new license. They won't be covered under the other one because the building is far enough away from their main building that the ABCC is requiring a second license. It's the same situation as Fish and Game.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions or thoughts? I think I'm feeling that there's at least a majority of the board that's comfortable with requesting the 16 all alcohol licenses for on-premise retail. And then there's the question Yolanda brought up about potentially adding one off-premise all alcohol
One
at the
retail,
same
all alcohol.
retail.
And what I would say
Off-premise.
is if it's gonna negatively impact this process, we can look at doing that separately. But if it's not gonna negatively impact it, I would say, let's see about moving forward with one more. Unless no one else agrees with that, but I think one more all
Well, what do people think
alcohol
about the
retail would not be
concept?
an issue here in town.
Yeah, what do people think about the concept of adding one? I know in the past there's been some concern about having too many package stores or, adding more, but
We did
what
have
do
that
people think?
discussion. We did have this discussion several years ago.
Well, I
And it
know
was
when
right in the
John-
downtown area.
Yeah, Luke came.
Right, and there, it was a concern for the current folks that had their licenses and how it would impact, and was there a need? There was, if there was a need for that. So, again, it's all based on potential.
Right.
And none of us have a crystal ball that can say this is going to be, you have a group of people that are living in a certain area, and it's better for them to have a liquor store up there than and them have to travel down, whatever. But and I guess we have to wait and see what the what the scenario is and the situation is to provide that.
Right. I just wanted to get an idea. I mean, I think I'd be okay with adding one, but I don't know, other people have thoughts or they want to get more information, or what are people thinking here? Because we did have, like Bill Goldberg came in and was quite concerned, for example. This was about 3 years ago, I think.
Clocktown,
Yeah.
liquor is the same one.
Yeah, so I don't
They're
know.
all concerned.
So anyway, so how would the process work, Michael, then, if we were to at least
So-
consider adding this particular?
What we would do is, so why don't we go and look at a little research and see
Okay.
if that would inhibit the process in any way. And we'll draft a warrant article, based on the information that we find, and, we can go from there, and if the board supports it, we can have that discussion when we talk about the article.
All right. All right, thank you. So we don't need a motion or anything on this one, so we can, with that guidance, we'll move on to the next one, which is transfer of funds from the Warren Barn to Warren District Perpetual Care Account. So
Yeah,
Michael,
thank you.
tell us about that.
Yeah, so this has come up because the perpetual care account is very, very much necessary to keep the ongoing operations of the Warren District going. And so I put this in, Yolanda, you'd asked me for some information, which I have.
Okay.
Right now, the Warren Barn only has 31,000 in it, in the Warren District accounts. We have one dedicated to the Warren Barn, and it's at 31,000. We have received $750,000 from Senate President Spilka to rebuild and reconstruct that barn. And then the board also allocated $500,000 as well. So for a total of, $1.25 million. So we should have enough money to do what we want to do there. So what I propose to do is take the 31,000 from the Warren Barn account in the Warren Woods District and move that to the Warren Woods Perpetual Care account. So that currently has $279,852. After the transfer, it would equal $311,227. So what does the Warren Woods Perpetual Care account pay for? So what happens is you have a large principal in there that generates interest, and we use that interest to pay for expenses. And for the most recent year, full year that we have, those expenses range from the utility bills to the oil bills. We have used it for brush hogging before Warren Woods. And when I say bills, I should say at 22 Elliott Street. Really, it's utility bills.
That's at Elliott Street.
For 22 Elliott.
For 22 Elliott. So the last full year data that we have, we spent $155 on the electric bill, a little over $1,000 for Holliston Oil, and about $140,000 for Town of Ashland related bills, which would be water, sewer, and stormwater. And
Did you say 140,000 for Town of Ashland water,
did I?
sewer?
I'm sorry, 140. Sorry about that.
It's a little different. There's a
You know,
Okay.
we get accused of jacking up fees, but
Like, I mean, I know it's town property and it still has to pay for stuff, but that's,
so let's knock a few zeros off of that. 140.
140,000. We could do a lot with that money.
We
I think you ought to
could.
charge them that.
Good. So again, and the total is for that last full year is
and
$1,040.
the care and custody of this money is under,
So it's the town accounts stay within the town. So the Land Stewardship Committee has had access to this to pay the bills as they come through. What happens is they get a bill, it does go to Brittany and to, well, it was Carol, now it's Stephanie for approval and processing.
So originally it started at 750,000.
That was for the entire nut.
Right.
yeah.
Correct.
And then it got broken down into that specific account.
Correct.
All right.
Well, into different accounts. And Joe, I'm sorry, I don't have exactly what we have left yet. If you can
Okay.
just give me
No, that's
1
all
minute. Okay.
That was going to be my next question, but I didn't need to know that now. That's all right.
And the principal is sitting there, and it's only the interest that's currently being used. Here's a question. That's a fair amount of money.
Mhm.
If it doesn't need to get used for the Warren District Perpetual Care, what can this money be potentially used for in the future, if anything?
Well, we keep it there. We'll keep it in that account
Okay.
and keep the balance, and that's really the way it should work. So if we're generating $8,000 of interest in a year, like we really shouldn't be spending $8,000
Right.
that year, because you want to build up a little bit of a cushion, because in
Right.
down market years,
We
like
won't
we
have
had
as
in
much.
2022, you're not going to generate $8,000. You might
Okay.
generate $4,000.
And are they using $8,000 a year in expenses?
What we have done previously in previous years is yes. So whatever was generated in interest was expended. But Brittany and it was Carol at the time put together a policy in place that says, I don't think you can use any more than 50% of what you
Okay.
generate.
Did we purchase equipment as well?
So that was under the just the Warren
Woods account,
Woods
and that
account.
was many years
Many
ago.
years ago.
Yeah, that was when I was first
Yeah,
coming on the
and
board.
yeah, so there was the tractor that was
Right,
purchased through
yes.
there. And that account, so any expenditures out of that come to the select board for approval.
Okay.
Right, for approval.
Okay,
Because I remember Kyle coming in front of us.
Yeah.
okay.
All right, any other further questions or discussion on this item? And I'll ask
I
for a
authorize the
motion.
transfer of $31,375 from the Warren Barn account to the Warren District Perpetual Care account.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, none. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, the next item is discuss the process that will be used to distribute the 2024 Boston Marathon Invitational entry forms. So.
Yeah, and actually Susan had proposed talking about this with the board as we head into that season. So Susan, would you like to explain or talk about it?
Sure. So every year we receive 22 invitational entry forms from the BAA as a thank you for the town allowing the marathon to go through town. Usually what we do is we distribute those to runners. 10 of them go to a nonprofit, 12 of them go to interested parties. Before we start advertising for the distribution process, I just wanted to check with all of you and make sure that you were looking to still follow the same process we have in the prior years.
And can you just remind us of that process, Susan?
Yes. So normally what we do is we start pushing the word out to the public, asking people that are interested to submit in a request. We will get more requests than we have entries. So then we just do a drawing. We draw all of the names, put everybody on a list, and go from there.
So I have a
Yeah,
question.
sure,
So-
sorry, go ahead.
So Susan, I know one of the reasons that we've given 10 bibs to the nonprofit in the past is because there have been some years where we haven't had a lot of interest from to participate in the lottery. And so we wanted to make sure that all the bibs obviously get used. Can you talk a little bit about like what we've seen in the last, I know we had COVID and so things were a little wonky because of COVID, but what was the interest in the past, say, couple years, and have we had a lot of we had a lot more interest from Ashland residents than we have bibs to fulfill it?
So if we severed our partnership with Nord, we would end up with bibs likely that go unused. We had a couple of years ago, I went through every single person on my wait list to finally get rid of all of them. It's really a hard thing to tell from one year to another,
Yeah, that's
because a lot of
interesting.
people think, oh, I want to do this. And then when it comes down to it, it doesn't always come to
It's a
fruition.
tough one. You got to raise money too.
Yeah, everyone
Right.
everyone that signs on to it needs to raise $3,000. Which
Yeah,
goes to
that's a
our grant fund.
reduced number compared to.
Yeah, to other
A lot of
to other
others, yeah.
charities.
Oh, yeah, a lot of
Susan,
organizations
remind
are
us,
now up to 4,000
besides
or
Nord,
5,000.
are there others, those 10 bibs, is it all for them or are there other nonprofits that,
Nope, they're all for Nord.
okay. because we have kind of a, yeah, a
So
special relationship.
What is Nord? Sorry.
I was going to say, Susan, can you talk a little bit about where Nord came from and our, relationship with them?
Sure. So what happened is initially when we had these, we had a couple of runners from Genzyme at the time, and Genzyme sponsored a running team, and they did genetic testing, and they paired up the runners with people that were suffering from those rare diseases. That kind of morphed into NORD, which is the National Organization of Rare Diseases, and they do the same thing. They partner a runner who is raising money for a particular type of disease or the testing for that disease. So they provide us the money in exchange for that entry. And then that person fundraises for the organization. So we get the first 3,000 basically.
And just, because there was the question about other charities. So the Boston Marathon has their Boston Marathon Charity Program. I'm not exactly sure what the name of it might be, just Boston Marathon Charity. But they limit which organizations are able to apply for bibs and how many bibs that they could get. So I think if NORD didn't have the partnership with us, they definitely wouldn't be able to get 10 bibs for fundraising efforts. But
well, the other thing in talking to Susan about it, again, as we were looking at the agenda, she said, because we don't know if we would actually get 22 people, by giving 10 of them to NORD, we know we get that money. They pay for those bibs, and that is a definite, we get to then use those funds to do some of the programs that we do with our BAA scholarship program. Yeah. And that still gives us 12. That still gives us a good number of bibs for people who want to run and raise funds for the community.
Yeah. I mean, my personal perspective is, I would say for this particular year, we continue the partnership that we've had in the past. I would say, depending on, our community has grown quite a bit in the last 5-10 years. And so there may be more interest kind of as years progress. And maybe at some point we want to change the percentage of,
sure.
But I would say that for this next year, I'm comfortable kind of keeping it.
So leave it the way it is, and then also leave it as the lottery, right? So if you wanna run, you let Susan know, your name gets put in a list, it gets put in a hat, and then on a certain day, we draw names, and those people are then selected, and those become our running team.
And if I remember right, so Susan, you basically recently have just gotten numbers close to what you actually have to give out, is that right? There hasn't been a long waiting list.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
No, I think you were saying that the 12, that it was hard to get the 12 bibs out to people. So there wasn't like a lot. It isn't like the lottery. There's long odds against getting drawn, is there? I mean, how many did you have last year for the 12?
So normally what happens is people start right after the marathon submitting their names. So I end up with this long list. But then when you stop pulling names, every year I have people that drop out. And usually it's 3 or 4 people drop out. They drop out for various reasons.
Right, okay. I get it.
They have an injury, they've moved, their job
It is
has
26
changed.
miles, so,
Yeah, so
All right.
So it's always good to have a few extras.
Okay. So that's not an issue at the moment. We'll move on.
Okay. Could I trouble someone just to review for me, please, about the monies that come to the town that we use for the BAA scholarships and how this all works?
Yeah, so the program is, as a runner is required to raise $3,000, that comes into our BAA gift account, our scholarship account. We then twice a year put out a call for requests for those grants. And then as a select board, Susan very kindly gathers all that information, puts it all together, and then 2 members of the select board become the BAA gift account or scholarship account, grant account. They review it, and then it comes to the select board, and we then approve.
Right.
And we just made some changes this past year in regards to amounts that we're offering people in the grant, but that's basically the process.
And so the $3,000 we only comes to us from the 12 runners that aren't involved.
No,
in
we
Nord.
also get that per bib from Nord.
From Nord as well.
Right, so they give us, that's
So
30,000
we have
from them right away.
$66,000
Yeah,
goes
okay.
into
Yeah,
the runner's
easy,
account. There's restrictions around what can be granted from the runner's account. It has to be like a 501c3.
Right.
So what we tend to do is we split it between, so in the past, we haven't made the distinction when we go out to the public and ask for grant applications of, we ask them if they're a 501c3, but we don't deny them a grant if they're not a 501c3. So, for instance, like the Ashland Public Library might ask for money, and the public library is not obviously a 501c3, but the Friends are. So, sometimes the Friends would have a separate or a different request. But, Yolanda said we made some adjustments last year, but we haven't changed the policy. And
Correct.
It kind of refreshed my memory that that's on my
You had said
that's
you're-
on my
yeah.
plate. So I would actually, that's a good reminder. I would love to be able to put that on the next agenda and kind of review that
Okay,
with
yeah,
the
send
changes
it
that we
in.
Yeah, because
Make sure
Yeah.
we
the other
remember.
thing is we do our fall grant round. Typically, we put the request out middle of September and we grant them sometime in October.
Yep.
So if we're gonna look at changing things, it would be good to do that before we do the next
The other
grant
thing
round.
is, we're doing committee appointments next. And
Correct.
I believe, I have it on good authority that these positions may be vacant.
They are.
Well, one is
Yay,
definitely
subcommittee.
vacant unless
So-
Steve Mitchell wants to come
Yeah.
back
So
and.
I don't know, so I don't know if we're actually making decisions tonight, but we could, I think. if-
Well, I think
if
what
people
Susan was
are
looking for
amenable.
was the process in regards to how we distribute the
No,
runners
no,
numbers.
I was kind of
And I
jumping
think-
ahead. to
and I
that,
think
yeah.
From what I don't think we need to make any changes. I think let's go forward
Right.
with this
We're
year
good.
and then,
We're good.
yeah. To Brandy's point, what I would say is let's look at the number of people that request numbers and how many we actually
Yeah.
give them to.
Yeah.
And
And
if we
see how
need to
that's
review with
working.
Nord
Yeah,
another
that's
year, we
great.
can do that.
Okay, the
Thank you,
next,
Susan.
yeah, thanks, Susan. The next is the request to spend up to $5,000 from the select board's gift account for the Nyanza Memorial.
Still using the old terms.
Yeah.
So thank you, Robin. And first, I just want to apologize. I really hoped that I would get from Keefe Tech graphic representations of what's being done at the Nyanza Memorial site, but I did not receive those. But let me give you an overview of what's happening and what the request is for. So I think everybody's familiar with the Nyanza Memorial site off of Memorial Drive. It's the one that Danny Borelli had designed and done. Really kind of a solemn reminder of the past and the history of Nyanza and the damage it inflicted upon the community in terms of lives lost.
And there was also a Native American part of that, wasn't there? Part of that, it wasn't it also?
That is a Native American site, like that
Yeah, yeah.
hill is Magunko Hill. So
That was incorporated. I'm sorry, I interrupted. But
no,
I
so
thought that was
it
part of it.
it was vandalized a few years ago, and it also still wasn't really very well defined in terms of how you get up there. And once you got there, you saw it. You knew where it was, but you couldn't necessarily really kind of navigate to it from the road unless you were familiar with it. So what's happening right now is a refresh of it, and essentially it is going to be landscaped around the memorial site itself, and then an ADA accessible trail will be built coming from the middle school, that little parking area up through there.
In the outfield of the baseball field.
Correct.
Okay.
And so that work is a combination of or donations, monetary donations for the plants, and then Keefe Tech has actually volunteered the design and actually volunteered the installation of the plants as well. So that is done. What we're looking at doing now is looking at getting money for the replacement of those panels that were glass at the time of all different colors. They're going to be a much more durable material, not just glass. It's more than plexiglass, but it's not glass. And so that's what this money would be utilized for. What I would recommend or suggest, if the board's amenable to it, is to authorize up to $5,000 for that. Anything that's not spent would go back to the account.
And we have substantial funds, I believe. I haven't looked at the.
Oh, that's
balance
right. We
recently.
do. I'm sorry. We do have 48,000 left in the gift account. 48,406.
Yeah. So just for clarification, that gift account we do use for a lot of different things. So I'm definitely support doing this. I just want to make sure that that we're aware of how we use that account.
How does the gift account get funded?
So that's funded through, now hotels tax money really through Framingham State. Used to be the Warren Conference Center. And actually,
any questions, other thoughts?
No, I think it was so sad. I remember when I heard about it being damaged and it was glass and vandalized. So to be able to support this and make it a more durable memorial, I think is a great idea. It's a great way to memorialize what our community has gone through.
And I agree. My only question, did anybody think about security or like, in this day and age, we can't have like a camera, in terms of, or, I don't know, think about like what, if this happens again. So this is more durable.
It's more durable. But we could look at doing something like that, or at least, a hidden camera kind of in some ways doesn't work because people don't know what's there and they go ahead and damage it anyway. And so maybe you catch them, but the damage is already done. Letting people know that they are being watched either through signage or really signage.
Right.
Word of mouth also helps too.
Under video surveillance, right? If a sign is there that says this area is under video surveillance, it may not stop them, but it may make them think about it.
I was just going to say that we have those signs at the pavilion down Stone Park, and he still gets vandalized.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes we have cameras
Not
there
as
too.
bad as it was.
I don't know, it's just a thought as people, redo all this.
Yeah.
Think about that. But, it's kind of an isolated area, so that's the thing.
Some kind of motion activated light.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have a solar motion activated light.
You'd probably, since it is forested, you'd probably have to run a wire from, the
Well, if you do a
gathering.
Battery or something.
You do a solar.
Solar.
one, right, you wouldn't even need it.
Well, you'd need the wire running from the unforested area where it can actually get sun to the light in the area. So,
Okay.
So, it's not an easy thing.
I move that we authorize funds to refresh the Nyanza Memorial from the Select Board gift account not to exceed $5,000.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, none. Motion carries 5-0. So
thank
thanks
you,
for
and I
doing
know
that.
Mrs. Kane thanks you as well as Dan and the Citizens Action Committee, everybody who was involved in the first one.
Great. Okay. So the next is to review and approve the annual reappointments. So this is the thing we do every year at this time. These are folks whose terms are up and have indicated to Susan that they're willing to continue. And so we have that list in front of us.
I just have one question because what's in the packet in the detail is different than what was on as part of the agenda. Right? In the
What's the
packet,
packet? Oh.
on page 27 of our 64
there's
page
another
packet,
list.
there's another list that has the vacancies but does not have everything that's on the agenda recommendation. Susan?
So, I don't have it in front of me, I can pull it out.
How's
But
it different?
in your backup, I think I provided you all of the vacancies that we now have listed.
Correct.
And what I listed on the agenda are all of the people that are seeking reappointment.
Okay. Okay.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So here's
Okay,
the vacancies.
that makes sense.
Okay, down here.
I mean, but
Oh,
at the top you had the people who are being reappointed and the vacancies, and then there was extra appointments because you had the Select Board BAA subcommittee and you had MAPC and Metro West Regional Collaborative on the agenda. So I just wanted to make sure people were aware of the slightly different list.
Yes.
Oh, so then.
Yeah.
Everything
So it's
that's
not
listed as a
on this one.
vacancy is listed on the website.
Okay, great.
I do have a question because now I'm looking at page 27 and I'm looking at what was on the
Yep.
agenda. And like I'm looking at, for instance, Conservation Commission, and I don't see that on the list on the agenda.
In the,
Because
I don't see
their next
either Owen or
expiration date
Preston.
is 26. Oh,
But I
You're-
thought that
you're
was
right.
what we were reappointing.
oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
well, you were absolutely correct. And
So we would
so
want to
that
add
is my
those
mistake.
guys.
So, what, have we identified ones that are different? Like, so Yolanda, you're not on this reappointment list?
I'm not on the one in the packet, but I'm on the agenda.
So why is that? What's the difference?
And
It's a-
Brandy just
Is that just
identified
an-
the two for Conservation Commission are in the packet, but not on the agenda.
Oh,
You know, if you want to move on to the consent agenda, what I can do is try to really quickly
okay.
go through
That
and see
sounds
if there's
good.
any differences here.
Okay,
Resolve
or
those.
list the differences, yeah, okay. All right, the next item on is the consent agenda. Have folks had a
I think
chance
it
to
might
look
just
at
be
it?
those couple of things.
It could be.
Okay, anything on the consent agenda to pull out, or otherwise I'll entertain a motion to,
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, so motion carries 5-0.
No fair. That is the quickest you have ever approved a
Well,
consent
let's talk
agenda.
about, wait a minute, there's a 1-day license.
Nope, it's one we've approved, and all we did was change the date.
How about the block party at Lanterns? I got some questions about them.
Did you get your input?
No, that was my question.
So I do see that we are missing the two members on the Conservation Commission.
Mike, we can do a recess. Are you ready, or should we take a little more time, or?
ZBA to
In
the
the ZBA,
associate
there's
members.
several in ZBA.
I'll call a 5-minute recess. How's that?
No,
And then-
no. We don't need that much time.
4 minutes?
No.
Okay.
No, so,
All right,
okay.
So what do we got?
So here we go. I approve the reappointments as presented in our packet, as
Okay.
well as, in our agenda, as well as include the two members for Conservation Commission and the members for ZBA that were not on the list in our agenda.
So for conservation, it's Owen Ackerman and
And
Preston Crow. For ZBA, it's Stuart Siegel.
And Ryan
Sullivan.
Sullivan.
And Anton.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm sorry to interrupt, but unfortunately, that is not going to work because
Because
they
they're
are not
different
on
dates.
and they're not on the agenda.
Yeah, but they're in the packet.
Yes, but they are not on the agenda.
Oh,
That we've noticed.
Oh,
interesting.
so they're not, so we can't appoint those people.
so we'll appoint
Okay.
them next time.
So
I
we can
guess.
get-
Okay, so we can appoint them in September and,
That's a good catch, Michael, yeah.
Was,
Would that
Let
be
me
a
just,
problem?
let me think about that. We might actually have to call a very quick special meeting to do it before
The end of the month.
the end of the month.
okay.
And
So we have a quorum.
that could be hybrid, except we do need a quorum physically.
You would, no.
No.
All
No,
right,
we're
so we
still
could
working
do a
with the-
hybrid,
yeah.
yeah, so, okay.
I apologize. for
okay,
that.
that's
so
all
I
right.
move, I'll change my agenda, I'll change my motion. I move that we approve the reappointments as presented on our agenda and thank the volunteers for their continued service.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Just one item question, what about the two BA subcommittees which have no one listed there?
I think, unless people know right now they want to be those select board members, I think we know we need to appoint them, but
Okay, so it'll continue
it's two
as
select board
is.
members
Okay,
I'd be interested
To
in
be-
being one.
named.
good,
I'm happy to do it.
great, so I think we already have people, so do we, so just procedurally,
So let's do this.
You could do
Let's
it too.
let's vote this, and then we can change it. Well, no,
Okay.
when we do our special election, when we do our special meeting, then we can put names in there,
Correct.
okay.
right? Because right now it
Because we
just
have
says
to put
select
it on,
board.
so,
right,
because
it
we have
just
to,
says
has to
select
be
board
on the
member.
agenda.
Yeah,
Okay,
that
very
works.
good.
Yeah.
All right, so the motion's been made and seconded with these blank names, so.
With the blank names.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? None, so motion. So these folks are appointed, and we'll have another meeting in due course.
And Susan, just a question. So the vacancies that are listed are folks that decided not to be reappointed or whatever the process is for them. Are we,
That's after our next meeting.
we currently have this list up on our website, so if folks want to apply for one of these committees, they can check out the openings and then complete a talent bank form. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And sorry about missing those few people.
We'll get them.
It was a lot.
Consent agenda?
We'll tell conservation they can't do any work for a while. I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm really joking. I'm really joking. We'll figure it out.
All right, our last items are the priority project update and town manager's report. This is both Michael's kind of presentation discussion, then we'll be going into board reports.
Sure. So downtown, really, really quickly, you'll see that they have milled Front Street. That's because the quality of work of that paving job was not up to par. It's not the standard that we expect. So they will be paving that as well as paving the rest of the project, meaning the Main Street, Summer Street, Homer Street intersection, and also the Front Street intersection before Labor Day. So end of August before Labor Day. So that will be done. And that, for the most part, will close out the streetscape portion. There's still some stuff that they will need to do coming back in the fall, mainly landscape-related activities and planting. Traditionally, it's too hot and too dry to plant in August, but this might be the exception.
Right.
But we're going to go with traditional methods and plant in the fall. And so what we're working on right now is making sure that the utilities have their equipment, the wiring installed in the underground conduits. The next step will be making the connections to the buildings, and then finally removing the wires from the poles and the poles themselves.
And the timing?
So I'm anticipating that probably, knowing the way the utilities are working, for the poles to come down probably spring of '24. Okay. So, but the road work and everything should be done mid-September. So if you also noticed, we did make them clean up and re-pour some of the concrete sidewalk panels because we found some deficiencies there as well. So they are doing that where it is clearly their fault. That is on their dime, as is the repaving job.
Can I, Mr. Chair, could I ask Michael a question with respect
Sure.
to that project? I'm sure you've all seen questions and comments with respect to the downtown areas with beautification and things of that nature, especially by the railroad tracks and the islands that are.
Oh, the asphalt?
The asphalt. Could you explain to the folks so there's no misunderstanding as to what that is going to look like, and will there be potential of the garden club going back and putting things out there to beautify that area, which I thought was going to happen?
Yes. So with regards to the asphalt within the islands, what's going to happen there is a company called McNulty is going to come in and stamp that with a special polymer over top of it, and they infrared it. And what it will do is it will look like cobblestone once that is done. And I think if you look at some of the previous presentations that were presented to the town, you'll see examples of that. McNulty is also the company that's going to come in and do the crosswalks. So they'll do a very similar process. They will mill a portion of the asphalt. They will overlay a polymer and stamp it to where it looks like brick, and they'll have some paint to outline the white section of it, so you'll look like brick crosswalks. It's color fast, so as it fades away, it's not like you'll see the asphalt. You'll still see the red and the cobble as well. Yolanda and I have already talked about the possibility of the garden club doing some work and having some plantings in some of those locations as well.
Okay.
And Mike, I had talked to you a little bit about when somebody posted on Facebook asking some questions, and I did respond with those comments. And actually someone then put up a picture that
good.
was perhaps taken from a previous
Was a plan
presentation
design.
that was done.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
look good. And thanks for that information. I wanted to make sure I was giving appropriate, correct information.
No, it's great. I mean, it's obviously it's very visible now. Black asphalt is a contrast to everything else you see.
Will those sidewalks or crosswalks be raised a little bit, or will they be flat?
They will, like the final plane will be flat. I mean, you'll see little indentations where the
Yeah.
lines for the bricks are.
Okay.
And I know that one of the reasons we had the sidewalks redone in some areas was because, let's just call it, some people were a little.
Careless?
They weren't paying attention. That's a really good way
we'll
to
go
put
with
it.
that.
Yolanda.
Go with that.
Is it in a much better place this time around? Are we good? Like,
Yeah,
Is there any
there unfortunately
issues?
was one spot that we were able to catch and clean up a bit, but it wasn't 100% error free. Let's put it that way.
but better, much better.
Much better.
Okay,
It's
thank you.
good. And just to give you an example, like sometimes what they do is they would pour a concrete slab under a tree after it had been raining, and the raindrops would hit the concrete panel and actually make indentations. So those are now fixed. Although it's been really hard to find a dry day.
That's right. To do this. It's unbelievable.
It'll take 6 months.
Yeah.
Exactly. So just moving on to Mendez. So we did talk earlier tonight about the boundary issues, or one of the boundary issues. As Mr. Morgan had noted there was one other homeowner that we're in conversations with about the boundary. I think Mr. Morgan also mentioned something about a shed. I'm not aware of that one. But we're looking at those. And I know Paul has been keeping the building committee informed of that. You should have received an invite for the ribbon cutting
This afternoon.
in September. So exciting times. Many thanks to everybody who's worked on that project. Paul, for his project management skills, which has been amazing, and then also the building committee for the work that they've done. Valentine, if you've driven by, you'll see that the windows are in. And Clappert the siding is actually going up. They've completed the west side. They're now going to work on the back. Simultaneously, what they've been doing is they've been installing the floor, which is 2-inch rough sawn lumber, similar to what was there before. And so that's being installed. I have put together a plan for us to discuss as a board on what to do with the property, with the anticipation that after that meeting, we will have a public discussion about it. But it's a multi-paged plan. So there's that. So with regards to the Warren District, we will have the Hall House on the next agenda. There's a couple of items that we need to finalize with
Oh,
that.
yeah, that was crossed off on this one, right?
So I know Joe and Joan and Helen have worked with Paul to identify a location. 2 outstanding items that remain are who is going to maintain that sign in the future, and then also we need to settle up on the amount of money that's going to be donated from the current owner.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw, I suspect all of you saw, and people in our live audience saw, and I would suspect some of our people viewing at home saw that the house did go on the market and it is under agreement currently.
Wow, that was fast.
Oh, it would a day.
Mm-hmm.
A day.
Something.
And then finally, one that we're.
Excuse me, I
sorry.
see Helen and Joan are on, I don't know, I guess
We
we're.
might have thought we were going to be talking about it because it was
Yeah.
originally on our agenda.
So we've completed those items, Helen and Joan, if you're, let us know if you, but we're pretty much done with that, I think, right? Joe, and you guys are following up on
And
that.
it's going to, we're going to talk about it, we're going to talk about it on the next agenda.
Yeah.
Next agenda, yeah.
So,
First meeting in September.
yeah.
And you all have the package that I previously sent to you folks, or do I need to do it?
I don't know if we distributed that, Joe.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but I have them.
You have them? Okay. All right.
Cool.
And then a new addition that we will be putting on priority projects is the Upper Charles Trail. Several members of the committee, including Rob, met with myself, Jen, Peter, and Alvaro to talk about our steps forward with that. There are a number of town-owned parcels that are part of the trail or that are necessary to be part of the trail. what we decided at that meeting is that there could be some issues with those parcels, and that makes sense to really identify what those issues are and resolve them before we start looking at private homeowners. So, Rob, one actually came up today, which was that High Street parcel, which has some restrictions on it that Lisa had noted. And then also, one of the things we need to get out on the table is the usage of the cemetery as part of the Upper Charles Trail. And Lisa had found, after we had talked and but before the meeting, what she has been able to find is that it looks like we could use the existing paths and walkways through the cemetery as part of a trail, but we cannot lay out a public way, an additional public way there. So we'll do a little bit more in-depth
Interesting.
research on that.
Which is different than what the trail group was hoping for, right?
I
The trail committee was looking at doing something that would skirt sort of around the outside of the cemetery.
Yeah, although it was it was going to still be on that little road at the bottom. So if you guys can visualize the old, right by the river, the lower
old
end.
section,
Yeah, there's an old cart path that comes up from the river. That's in wetlands as well, so it's complicated. But it was going to go on, I believe, a little bit of the old path anyway, that leads to the water, the pumping station. So it is complicated. And so, us as elected officials, I guess, need to be aware that as the path progresses, assuming there's no legal impediments, that we'll be looking at actually having a piece of the bike path, inner on the edge of the cemetery or actually inside it. So we should be aware of that. And there's some people that will have, there'll be issues with that. So that's something that I think we need to kind of process and think about ourselves.
Good to get information. Sorry. It would be good to look at other bike trails and see if other trails have gone through cemeteries.
Yeah.
Is there precedence for it?
Yeah.
We can use that.
I don't know if we talked about that specific item.
No, we didn't,
Rob,
but that's-
is that something the Trails Committee could do some research on?
I think, and we've actually did do that in the past, because we had some of these discussions 2-3 years ago.
Right.
And so we did, I know Joel came up with a bunch of instances. I know my own parents' graves in Acton, there's a walking trail right near there where people park and walk and come back. So anyway, there is mixed use in cemeteries a lot. And anyway, and the other, and of course, it didn't, Michael reminded us that we of course need to talk to the schools again, and still haven't done it. So that's kind of a glaring omission. I know we talked about that again a year and a half ago, to go see the school committee. So there's still, people have said they're going to go see the school committee to review the plan with the school committee, which really is the high school, and where the trail is going to go in and around the high school. So that's another major public land issue.
And hopefully we can get those resolved fairly quickly. And it was great to see the enthusiasm and excitement from the Trails Committee
Tony
members.
and Joel,
Tony and Joel were very thrilled that we were kind of at the step where we're actually moving forward with this. So that was great. So that is really priority project updates. So moving on to town manager reports, I have some items that aren't listed here. Trying to think of which ones I want to start off with. Because the first one we have on here is, I will just say, is a not very pleasant one, which is an update on the MBTA renovations set to begin on August 19th. So we have been under the impression, because we had actually been told, that bus service was going to be available to residents, shuttle buses leaving from the Ashland station, going to Framingham Station to help basically alleviate
And to Southborough, right? Yeah.
And to Southborough to alleviate some of the burden. So that is still happening, but what was stated is that people could park there and do that. And so what we found out, and Brandy, I started receiving texts.
Yeah.
Brandy, I think Rob, you
right.
sent one too. There was conflicting information being posted on the MBTA website that said the parking lot was going to be closed. So I reached out to the MBTA. Senator Spilka's office reached out to the MBTA, asked first of all what the clarification was, which did come back that, yes, the parking lot is going to be closed and the buses would only be available to walk up riders.
Use a car.
Well, exactly. I'm like, you're not going to get much ridership out of that. And even after the advocacy of Senator Spilka's office, they...
I never did hear back from Brian, so I'll call him. Brian's the executive director of the advisory board. Who was going to call as well. Yeah.
So the new...
Good memory, yeah.
So the new information that I received today, and I've received a couple of emails about it, is that where those buses are going to be picking up are on the south side.
The 135 side?
The 135 side of the station.
Which means that, because we were talking sort of maybe Burnham's might be able to
Yes.
help, but you can't get up and over.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the pedestrian crossing is
So
going to be worked on.
I have no idea, other than the people at Cirrus, who's going to get off at, well, I guess you could
It's
get
only
driven
Cirrus.
down Memorial Drive
Dropped off.
and dropped off
Instead
there.
of going to Framingham.
So
I think the
But that's-
problem, the main reason I think we thought this was helpful is because the parking could get congested in other places, right?
yes.
And also it's probably convenient to park near your home. So what was their answer to that? Are they saying, did they say, do we have reasons like why they're closing it and why they think it's not a problem to go to Framingham or Southborough?
So with regards to closing the parking lot, they are going to be doing some work on the parking lot, and then they're also going to be using it as a staging area. But it is a huge parking
It
lot
is.
Yeah,
on both sides.
really.
Especially like if I mean, I'm thinking of the 135 side. If they're gonna have that as the shuttle location, I mean, they could have one area of that parking lot that would be a small part of that parking lot of 100 spots that people could park in safely, and then they can come right into it, and it would be far enough away. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe they're really using that.
From the
Yeah.
train station.
It's
But what the T should do is pay Danny to X number of spots and give the parking free to X number, at
can't
least
get-
Ashland residents.
You just can't get up and over. That's the problem. You can't because they're gonna be
Well,
taking
we're
down that
closing down
structure.
that
Yeah, but I'm
structure.
saying then they'd have to pick them up on that side and drop them off on that side.
I'm sure they're probably thinking from a logistical standpoint to get to the Framingham station, 135 is like the which is stupid, which is
Well,
really stupid.
I also saw directions to the station from the MBTA that said take Pleasant Street to
Yeah,
135.
those things were like not.
Well,
So
the
I-
other thing is we just thinking about now what you just said. If you're traveling to Boston in the morning, you have to be on one side, and
Yeah,
so
you
they'd
could be
have
on
to
the
drop off and
135
pick up.
side, Yeah.
So they're closing the whole platform.
Right.
Yeah, so
But I mean, if you're parked on the 135 side,
you would be
still have to
shuttled
take
to
the
Framingham.
shuttle.
You'd still be getting on the train in Framingham.
There's
And
always
then
a
you
shuttle.
shuttle
There's always a
back.
Yeah,
shuttle.
yeah,
It's a question
yeah,
of
yeah.
whether you
There's-
can park.
Yeah.
Even though the train is still going to be going through, it's not stopped.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
know, I understand.
So I do know that Daniel's Table, which is in Framingham, is offering to rent spaces. I haven't talked to Sandra to see like what the logistics of that is, but they do have spaces available
Near the Framingham.
near the Framingham station, and
Farmers
that
Hall the same way.
and that parking lot on the Howard Street side or Franklin Street side is a decent size, but it really does fill up. Like I'm on like the what's a 7:30 train out of Ashland, but it's like it's the only really good express train to get into Boston in the morning, and then when I'm coming home, I can see that parking lot completely filled
So it's filled now. So that's a
In
problem.
Framingham.
in Framingham.
That's
is
a problem.
And that is very different than the analysis that they have provided
right.
us,
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
I have heard that there are different businesses that are publicizing the fact that they have spots available for rent in Framingham, which I think is good. And I would just encourage them to advertise
Yeah.
and continue to do that.
So is it your impression from your discussions that they think this is a done deal, that the way they're doing it?
Yeah, I mean, it is MBTA property. It is,
Jeez.
I just, my main disappointment has been that we were basically told these are the options and, these are the
Yeah.
basically the mitigation measures that we're going to put in place. And as we get closer to that date, that seems to have kind of fallen apart.
Yeah, and then we're gonna have a real problem with the Boston commuters if what Brandy's saying is true, and people have trouble finding parking after we close the,
They're just gonna drive into Boston.
well, they're gonna be pissed off too.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Oh, it's they're going to be very, very frustrating. So I did put something in the newsletter. I will be putting something out in local town pages, which will be after the start date. But I'll put something up on social media, and I would encourage you all and anybody watching to share that to make sure the word gets out accordingly.
It's really weird, because they're discouraging ridership. They're making it difficult.
Right.
Like what?
So there's that. We've covered the update on leaving civil service. Next is an update on the Human Services Department, and I will actually turn that over to Jen.
So as you probably remember, Jennifer Wolfing had moved on earlier this summer. So for the last several months, we had a few other turnovers. Caitlin left from the food pantry. So really taking a good look at that department. And what we've been able to do is actually promote Kristen French, who has been serving as our Director of Prevention. So promote her to the Director of Human Services and Prevention. So sort of taking, when you're really looking at what Jennifer was doing, a piece of her job was really the administrative oversight of that department. So Kristen will take over that and the supervision of the staff, which will open up a little bit more time for direct sort of outreach and human services work and case management work. And so we're able to promote Courtney Laughlin, who has been our case manager for over the last year, to a lead social worker role. And so she'll continue the work that she's been doing for the last year and be the primary sort of outreach and case manager that we'll have in a social worker. She has her master's degree in social work, and she's working towards her license, which she'll get in the next few months. And then we have a case manager role, which was just on the agenda. So Joy will start in the middle of September. And we had Yusha Bell start as the new food pantry resource coordinator 2 weeks ago, and that's been really great. And so we're sort of trying to build out that a bit more to have more volunteers. I think Kristen will be able to help with that as she's been able to sort of mobilize volunteers through the work she's done with Decisions Coalition. And so build up a little bit more volunteer, hopefully be able to reach more people with the pantry. Then also that sort of tends to sort of lead into a little bit more case management work at the human service at the community center, and they'll all be housed out of the community center still. And so it's always been really important to that department to sort of stay cohesive. This will also allow us to sort of, I think, bridge the gap a bit between intervention and services and then some of the prevention work that's been happening. So Kristen also oversees Eliza, who is a coordinator for Decisions at Every Turn, works in the schools and does a lot of youth outreach and does a lot of prevention work. She's also has a social work degree and background and has previously worked in food pantry work and food resource work in other towns. And so she's been a real asset over the last several months where we've had so many vacancies. And so they're sort of building that gap where hopefully we have a little bit better sort of continuum of services through prevention, outreach, and then intervention and case management. So I think that it's going to work really well for the community in terms of, I don't expect anybody to see anything different from the human services side. And I'm hoping that we're able to bolster some of our prevention and education and program work.
Kristen's great.
Yeah.
She really is. And so from like a point of contact, so if we had somebody that we needed to put in contact with human services, it would be Kristen that we would put them in, not Courtney, right? Okay. And then Kristen would direct them to, if it wasn't something that she was directly responsible for, she would be that point person. So, okay. So we're fully staffed in the community
We will be, yes.
human services.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Very shortly, yes.
Okay.
That'll be great.
That's good. That's good. And congratulations to Kristen and Courtney.
Yeah, it's always nice to be able to promote from within. Yeah.
For sure. Next on the agenda is notification about changing the trash billing cycles. So currently we bill for the trash fee once a year. And as you and everybody else knows, well, maybe not everybody else, there's been a significant adjustment to the base fee to the tune of $50, bringing it up over $200. So we've been trying to put our heads together as to how to mitigate that. And we've heard some concerns, especially from seniors and stuff. And what we've decided to do is actually break it up into 2 billings, so people don't have to come up with as much cash up front. So we did look at the additional cost for that. That would be about $4,000 extra dollars. Again, the grand scheme of our budget, it's very little compared to what a difference this could make in a number of households' lives and budgets. So want to notify you about that.
And Michael, just as is there any possibility of coordinating that with the other quarterly bills? So
yeah, we could certainly look at that and see if there's a way we could make that happen. The key thing is going to be to help people understand, hey, you're getting one bill that's less than what you usually get in August, but you'll get another bill.
Right.
So,
That was what I was going to ask. Like, so what, when we send out the first new bill and we do break it up into 2 billing cycles, what are we sending along with it as far as like information? And because, when we get our trash bill, like there's not like much information on it, and people are just used to paying it once a year. Thinking about like a little bit of education along with the bill, just to make sure that they know that they're going to see another one. So we don't have to,
You're expected to pay this year.
because it could end up being more than this amount if we're sending like additional mailings to people to continually pay that second bill. Like if people aren't.
and we can look at putting an insert. It might be a little bit too late for this first cycle, but
Won't it say half of the bill versus a full? Because like I think before it said your annual trash fee.
yeah.
I would think it would say biannual trash fee at minimum.
Why not put when the next bill is going to come?
Right.
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 I
We
mean,
could do
that's-
that too. Well,
If we can print something on there, just
You
even
can-
if it's just
Even it just says this is your full bill amount and this is like your
you
yearly
go.
annual
Yeah.
amount. and
Right,
this is what
something.
your- Similar like with your tax bills, it should say like annual.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then what your quarterly bill is.
I'd say, I mean, you said it might be too late for that.
Maybe. I mean, I have to check.
Yeah. I
check
mean,
into
maybe we put a sticker on the outside or something.
right.
then.
Right.
I think it's pretty critical.
Now biannual or something.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We need to let people know.
So, okay, there's that. So update on new bicycle law signs. So there has been a new rule, new law that's been passed that requires motorists to give 4 feet space between themselves, their car, their vehicle, and either a pedestrian or a bicyclist. And so in order to help promote that, MassDOT has offered to give us signs, to fabricate and deliver signs to us that we can put up. So we have taken advantage of that. We have not got the signs in yet, but we have made the request and put the order in. And we'll be putting those up on Chestnut Street, Myrtle Street, Pleasant Street, and West Union Street.
So that reminds me of, it was a while ago that Joel was at our meeting and was talking about this new law, and he had sent us, I think, flyer or some sort of promotion stuff. Can we also, put that out in social media and make sure we put that like in your newsletter and stuff like that, just to kind of help, because I think a sign is good, but
Why all of a sudden is there a sign there?
right.
Yeah, I believe we did. It was shortly after his presentation, but we can run
Yeah.
it again.
I
Once the
noticed
signs
the
go up.
police department, it was the police, did a great job on that new intersection. Was it them doing? I don't want to give them, remember when you guys changed the stop signs at Elliott and Fruit?
Yep.
There was some great
Yeah, DPW.
DPW and the
Yeah.
police, so somebody was constantly posting things.
But police, so we try to work in concert
Yeah.
with each other and help each other
Right.
out. And so even the fire department might have put something in
Yeah.
there. So
That was great.
this was that.
Yeah, so
And-
that's a great, thing to follow up on. And, thank you for following up and doing that, because as someone who at least rides occasionally around town, it's great that people have that, reminder, because many of our road shoulders are just not that great. There's a lot of dirt and stuff in the side of the road. Sometimes you have to come out to go around potholes and things like that. So anything that helps improve safety like that is, I think, great.
If I may interject one quick comment with respect to that. If cyclists are gonna be, riding in the roadway as like a motorist, they need to follow the rules of the road.
Sure.
You need to stop them when there's a stop sign. You need to give a direction when you're gonna turn left or right. And I see it all the time, that they don't do it. And there's been several near misses to the point
Right.
where my heart's in my throat because
Well, here's the other thing, Joe. It's not just bicycles. We've
It's
got
the
all this
scooters.
You've got all this electric stuff.
Well,
coming.
that's
We're
what I was
gonna
gonna
have-
ask if we
we're
could
gonna
put that
have
on the
continued
agenda.
issues. Yeah, we're gonna have continued issues, I'm sure. Anyway, not an easy thing.
No, well, we're
But I
always
think that's
evolving.
great to improve the safety.
Oh, yeah.
So speaking of safety, and the police were mentioned, just an update. I believe, the board saw and the board was aware that recently, actually last Monday, we promoted Michael Vincula from the position of lieutenant to the newly created position of deputy chief, and Ryan Puzo from patrol officer to sergeant. So congratulations again to those gentlemen, and we're really looking forward to seeing what they do and in their new positions and seeing their careers continually progress.
Great.
So those are the things I did have on the agenda. Two things I did not have on the agenda is I hope everybody is aware that DCR has actually selected Ashland to host their annual Town Forest Committee Conference, which will be happening on Saturday, October 21st. So they'll start out at the Ashland Community Center, and then actually we'll bus people over to our town forest for a tour. So,
Was there an announcement or an invitation?
they have. So I did put something in the newsletter. I'm not
Okay.
necessarily sure if something went out in.
Well, that's nice. How did that come about? Did they?
Our town forest committee, lobby.
Lobby?
I mean,
That's nice,
essentially.
yeah.
The Town
Great.
Forest Committee set something out.
I thought they
Yeah,
did.
they sent an email
Okay.
inviting us and letting us know about
Yoinks.
it.
So.
They must have blacklisted me from there.
Oh, I'm sure it's there.
They might have their reasons, you never know.
And then last, maybe you biked in the trail.
Yeah, that's right.
So maybe that's.
Well, they actually encourage it, believe it or not.
So last but not least, I just want to give thanks to the people, and I'll name some of them here in a bit. The people who produced and put on the remote area medical clinic at Keefe Tech.
Oh, yeah.
So it was, the turnout was phenomenal. People were lining up midnight the day before to take advantage of it.
Were you there?
I was not. I was actually at a meditation retreat,
Yeah.
which
No, I just
quickly
wanted
went
to
away
sound
on
like-
Monday.
yeah.
But
Yeah, that's what.
no Zen left.
Zen, no, that's-
That could be on a T-shirt. No Zen left.
You seem more Zen, actually, now that I.
Really?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, maybe I'll have to do this more often. But yes, we ended up serving 316 unique patients.
Wow.
They ended up turning away quite a bit because they didn't have enough providers,
Oh, that's too bad.
which is too
Incredible
bad.
work, yeah.
We had a total of 41 volunteers on the 11th, 151 volunteers on the 12th, and 112 volunteers on the 13th. The total value that the volunteers provided was almost $110,000, and the service value of the professionals providing the service was over $100,000 as well. And so they did everything from vision service. I believe they made almost 150 sets of eyeglasses. They did 77 dental procedures, including 17 surgical procedures like extractions,
Oh, my goodness.
and one set of dentures.
That is unbelievable.
98 physical exams, a number of shots, foot care. Dr. Ron was part of that.
A lot of volunteers.
So they did an amazing amount of work.
That's great. Well, thank you to those who organized it. I know Steve
Steve was there.
was part of it, and
All the people from the Board of
one of
Health.
our
Yeah.
Board of Health members.
So, the Board of Health members, specifically calling out Jay and Ed Berman for the work that they did. Although the rest of the Board of Health members helped. Jay's wife, Liz Burns, Steve, as you mentioned, Raj and Laura, Ed Hart, Kristen French, who we were just talking about, Addie Gibson from Metro West Medical Center, and we mentioned Steve and Bonnie, and then also Fran Blake and Rob St. Germain were also
Nice.
important.
And this is a group that comes in and does this, organizes this at Keith Tech periodically.
So they're the ones that do come in and provide the service. The organization and the planning has been a 1.5 year effort.
Yeah.
Wow.
And again, it's just phenomenal what they were able to do and what they provide.
Shows you the state of healthcare.
Yeah, Raj showed me what the Ram Clinic pulls up in is the largest 18-wheeler that you can get on the road, double level. Double level. I hope they didn't go. They clearly didn't go on Storrow Drive. But yeah, and so what they do is they empty it out, and then they can use the space inside for things like the eyeglass grinding and everything. It's just an amazing thing. I hated to miss it, but congratulations to everybody. And so that's it for me.
Well, thanks for reporting on that. Okay, so that brings us to board reports, and I guess I'll just start at the end and work our way over here. So Claudia, go ahead.
All right. Well, I just wanted to say it was an honor to be present for the promotion
I do.
for our police, and it was just an honor. It was very nicely done, very well done. They were family members. I think I'm not sure who's. I think it was. We had a 100-year-old grandmother.
That was Mike Venchula's
Was
grandmother.
Mike's, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, who was present. Must have been really special for her, right? So thank you for that. We did have a Mindos Building Committee meeting last night, and this school is really beautiful. It's
Amazing.
I can't wait for people to be able to see it. And one of the things, a couple of things, when the old building came down, it was like the new building was unveiled. It
Like
was
revealed.
really
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yep. And then the other thing that I've noticed too is in terms of the setting, the exit road now. If you I had occasion to go over there one day, and one of the superintendents gave me a ride around the front, and you can really see. We have always known what a beautiful site that is. But now the building sits so that you can see the forest behind it. So, and again, the building itself just remarkable. The sign, the electronic sign has been going up, and today they were working on the bottom of it, the fieldstone, the fieldstone surrounding. So really beautiful. Yeah, there will be an open house to the public. I believe at 12:30 p.m. on
12:30,
September
yeah.
9th.
12:30 to 4 on September 9th.
To 4:30 on September 9th. So really exciting. School is going to start on time. So
Right.
all my children friends. Yeah, it's a few days. They get the Labor Day weekend in like
When
we
is
did.
when does school start?
September 5th. Tuesday
Tuesday after
September
Labor Day.
5th.
Right after Labor Day.
Yeah.
There goes summer.
Yes, it is.
Start after Labor Day.
And then
once or
this
twice
Saturday,
before.
Mr. Mignani and I will be at the farmer's market from 10 to 12
Thanks for reminding
with
us
office hours. Thank you, Brandy, we have some new decorations for the table, so we'll really stand out. I'm
Oh,
not
boy.
sure I appreciate that, but no. So thank you for that. And looking forward to it. I'm sitting here tonight thinking that, I might make a little sheet that we could give to people that might have some of the highlights, some of the things we discussed tonight, things that are important. We'll put a little QR code on there and take people to our website. So if anyone has anything they'd like to add on that sheet, little one-liners, let me know, and I will add it to a sheet. How's that, Joe?
That sounds good. Yeah.
So thank you. That's it for me.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Brandy.
Next, okay. So just talking about the office hours, Yolanda and I had office hours at the farmer's market in July. The farmer's market is a great place to do the office hours. I just wanted to give a shout out to Jean Walker from the Ashland Farmers Market, who is a rock star in finding us spots, and we're consistently been there once a month. Well, we're now being there consistently once a month. So, and so the question I did want to ask the group is, I haven't reached out to the Ashland Day Committee to do a booth at Ashland Day.
Let me know.
I wasn't sure whether the group would prefer to do office hours the week before Ashland Day at the farmer's market versus try to man a booth at Ashland Day.
So
You can do a booth at Ashland Day.
yeah, so here's the thing I think with Ashland Day, I know for myself is I typically am filming and it's hard to commit to being at the booth or even, and I know we've done it many years ago. We had a booth and it was tough trying to get people there. I would say if we want to do hours at the farmer's market the week before and then just, I mean, we're all at Ashland Day, unless we want to do something where we reach out to other elected and appointed committees and say, it's an Ashland town booth and whoever wants to be there. But I know a lot of other committees
They have their
already
own.
have their own booth. So,
I-
They do.
yeah.
Quickly remind everybody about that, yeah.
Okay. So if everyone is okay with it, then I'll reach out to Jean and see if we could do the 16th, which seems to fall between the weekends of the opening of Mendez and the Ashland Day. So I think it'll be a good weekend to do it. So we'll plan. I'll reach out to Jean to do that.
And I could be available on the 16th.
Okay, sounds good. The other thing I just wanted to talk about, we are meeting, the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee is meeting tomorrow. I would like to remind folks watching that we have a new comprehensive plan newsletter that people can subscribe to. That is award-winning, not really, but I'm gonna. It will be. It will be. It will be. But it will be one of the best ways that people can see monthly what the comprehensive plan
That's a great idea.
steering committee is working on. So I would encourage folks to subscribe to that. Go on the communications. Michael was talking about the communications webpage. Or I have a QR code that I can get people to. So,
Send it over, I'll put it right on my sheet.
all right, sounds good.
I know that'd be good to
One-liner
have at
sheet,
the-
one-liner, and
There
a
you go.
QR code.
Yep, yep. So, and the last thing I wanted to just say is I got an email from the chair of CPC. So if you remember a while ago, we had talked about the restrictions working group for our conservation restrictions. And there was the discussion of whether CPC might be willing to take on that working group because of the way that committee initially had the allocation of folks really kind of mirrored a lot of what CPC's membership is. And I did get an email from Aaron Ladd that they did vote to take that on.
Oh, nice.
So CPC will be beginning to work on the restrictions. I did ask Aaron if they had discussed specifically starting with, because there's two properties that are really kind of priority projects, priority parcels, 125 Front Street and then 6 Cherry. So I don't know if they are if they have prioritized one over the other, but I'm happy to, I know Aaron's probably going to reach out to Michael, but I'm happy to kind of stay connected to that too and see if what their process, if they have questions and things like that, because they're gonna probably have questions as they go through this process.
Well, they will have the resources to find the answers.
So
They are smart people.
they are smart people. So, but anyway, I just wanted to pass that along. So, and that is
Yeah,
it for me.
maybe something to think about putting on the agenda, just to kind of review all the history of that and where we're going and what the need for that is.
I mean, I think it would be good to have CPC come at some point
Oh, yeah.
and just talk about,
Sure.
how their funding mechanism, how
That's a great idea.
to discuss what they're looking, because they always say they're looking for projects, but it's kind of a
Oh,
vague.
really? And the other
Yeah.
thing is they're a committee, and we always talk about seeing committees, but I don't remember them coming in here for years, really.
So, but it might be a good
Yeah.
good thing to have them.
Yeah.
And then talk about this as well as they're kind of getting started with it. So.
Yeah, great. Okay, thanks, Brandy. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real briefly, this past Tuesday, we celebrated 77th year of the independence of India from the British Empire. And it was a wonderful event. Brandy and I represented the select board. Just wonderful ceremony. And even though it was raining, it was a very nice event. When isn't it raining? But very nice event, and folks were great. So we look forward to. I was talking to those folks about having the Indian recital do a dance thing over at the gazebo for Ashland Day, and they were all excited about it. So
Yeah,
hopefully
definitely.
that'll happen.
That'd be great.
So, nice segue into my next quick thing is that the summer concerts, next Tuesday night is the last summer concert. I can't believe it. It was rainy as all heck. I think we may have had 2 great concerts, and then unfortunately a lot of them were postponed or rained out. We did have it last Tuesday. Even after it rained, it trickled a little bit. We had about 50 people show up and, with their rain gear on, but it was a good band, and it's unfortunate that we didn't have more. But we'll see if we can do something maybe inside and have them come back again and play for everybody. I was happy to be part of the promotions and be part of the crowd and watch 2 fine officers that I used to work with. And one of them, yeah, that's why I have this long white beard, was a former student of mine in the law and order programs that I had in the school system. Ryan Puzo was in my class.
Oh, wow.
And it's nice to see him be a sergeant.
Yeah.
And he says, I think you rubbed off on me. I said, oh man, that's too bad. But anyway, I wish him well, and I hope they all stay safe. And Deputy Chief Venchula, who was a detective under my tutelage, just good guy, and I think they'll do well for the department as a whole. And lastly, Ashland Day, September 23rd. Always looking for help. The last day for vendors who are willing to or wishing to get involved is September 10th. Board members, board committees from Ashland, come see me, get a hold of me. I'd be happy to give you an application form. I think right now we're about to have about 70 or 75 vendors, which isn't bad considering that.
And the petting zoo.
And
a petting zoo.
the petting
There you
zoo.
go.
We have
Someone's
the
going
petting
to be in
zoo.
charge of the goats. I don't know.
We have the. I love the guy, but
This
that's
is
just.
an opportunity to desensitize.
Yeah. This absolutely, and then some. It's not going to be as big as it used to be. I mean, we're coming back from the ashes, unfortunately, because of COVID over 3 years. But the response has been very positive, so we're looking forward to it. And again, let's hope it doesn't rain. That's all I can say. Please don't rain.
Okay.
Not cross your fingers, cross your toes, cross your eyes, do whatever. But let's
right.
let's have a great day for it. And that's about it. One last thing, I want to thank Michael Duca for the summer concert program. Michael puts it all together. Folks have no idea what it's like trying to get bands. Everybody wants this, everybody wants that. They want top dollar. And Michael knows how to work it so that way, we can get, good bands and, for under $500 to $600, which isn't bad because the average going band right now is $750.
Wow.
That's a lot of money, so. But we thank everybody and we look forward to Ashland Day, and that's all I have.
All right.
Thank you,
Joe.
sir.
Motion to go past 10 o'clock.
I tried to make it fast, I'm
Second.
sorry.
All those in favor going past 10 o'clock, say
Aye.
aye. And Yolanda, before we go to you, Michael has something he wanted to.
Yeah, just something that I forgot. I'm sorry. So August 31st is National Overdose Awareness Day.
Yes.
And so on August 26th, here in the town of Ashland, we will be remembering that and memorializing that. We will be set up from 9 o'clock to 10:30 at Montenegro Square, across from the library.
I'm sorry, what time was that again?
9 o'clock to 10:30. Please stop by. We'll have materials there for you. Raj will be there.
Yep, doing so Narcan training, and And then they're just going to, so in 22, over 2,000 people died, so there'll be 200 purple flags out there, like sort of showing the number of people
Well,
in
what day is
Massachusetts
this?
that
Saturday.
had overdosed.
Saturday.
Just to sort of bring
This
awareness to that.
Saturday.
Yeah.
No. Next Saturday, the 26th.
Yeah, so our goal is to plant 236 flags. So
Okay. Cool.
anyway, so thanks for letting me
Yeah,
interject.
jump in, not a problem. Not too much. We're from the Metro West Regional Collaborative. We're in the process of planning our next Trails Project Committee event, and that's probably going to happen in October. The other thing for the Metro West YMCA this Saturday, August 19th, from 9 to 11, is having their group exercise showcase. So it's at the Framingham YMCA. It starts at 9 o'clock. It goes to 11. There are 4 different classes. You don't have to be a member. You can just go and try the different classes. There's an exercise class. There's a yoga class. I forget what else, and you can go to their website to check it out. So that's this Saturday, August 19th from 9 to 11 at the Metro West YMCA. And that's really all I have. I haven't been doing too much lately.
Oh, sure you have. I'm sure you're doing a lot. All right, thank you, Yolanda. The only item I have is just a reminder, we finally did schedule the joint meeting with the planning board for September 14th at 7:15. I think you all know that, right? I think just make sure you have that on your agenda. And I think our next, we're not scheduled to meet again until our first meeting in September, right? So that's,
Well, now we're going to do a brief
except
to do the
for
rest of the
the
appointments.
brief hybrid online, it's likely to be, are we likely to Zoom it? Yeah,
Okay.
great. That'll be scheduled at some point, but our next regular meeting is that first Wednesday in
September
September,
6th.
correct? So,
So the
Right.
only question I have is conservation meeting Monday? Like, do we need to meet before conservation meets? Because,
They're all good until
Okay.
the 31st.
okay. Okay. Because like, that's the only one I was
so
like, they
we
won't
have
have
to do
quorum
this,
if
yeah, we have to do this before the end of August. Is that basically? it?
Okay, okay.
Great, all right, so if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All right, that's it, thank you all.
Thank
Good
you
night.
all.
Yep.
Good seeing you, yes.
Good night, good night.